Welcome to Armchair Expert, Experts on Expert. I'm Dan Shepard, and I'm joined by Lily Padman.
Hi there.
Hi.
We have a fun guest today.
There was a couple of Easter eggs dropped along the way, right?
Yes.
As I recall?
Yes.
Yes. So, probably people guessed it.
I've had a few people come up and say, I'm really excited for.
And they guessed.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right. Alison Roman. What a delight.
Oh, she's a dream.
Alison Roman, she's a cook and a best-selling author. She's written the books Nothing Fancy, Dining In, and she has a new beautiful dessert book for people who dream of desserts, who like desserts, and who don't do desserts. It's called Sweet Enough.
It's good.
And you've already made some of the...
I have made a few of the recipes. They're so good. She does not miss.
She's got 100% batting average.
Everything I've made. She has a famous cookie recipe. It's called they call it like the cookies, the internet cookies. They're a chocolate chip shortbread. They are so good. I do make them all the time.
I've had
Kristen loves them.
I love them. I've had them numerous times. They're delicious.
They're so good. And sometimes I gift them out.
Yes, they're your kind of, they're your go-to.
Yeah.
The cookie.
The cookie.
So check out Sweet Enough. Also enjoy Alison Roman.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
I feel like I have met you before. It's so weird.
I know. I want to definitely talk about that. We have a lot to talk about in that realm of my friend's coming who I've never met.
It's so weird. My friend, we were like trading voice notes, and she was like, "My hands are shaking for you." She's like the one like. She and I have known each other for a long time, and like 5 years ago, she's like, "You have to go on that." Not like 5 years ago, but a long time ago.
Yes.
And so I had to tell her, and she's like, "I'm shaking for you." I'm like, "Well, I'm not." I was like, "Should I be shaking?"
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
No.
And she's like, almost started crying.
Oh.
She just loves you so much.
That's
And,
really
it was,
sweet.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. But yeah, there's definitely a parasocial thing happening here.
Yes. That's a new word for me. I didn't know it until we had Anna Kendrick on, and she was using it
Great
like
episode,
a bunch.
by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We were like, what is that? And she was
Yes,
like,
I'm familiar.
that thing that we all are doing all the time. Where does your dad, we'll cut this, but you're from here. Does your dad still live here, right?
Don't even cut this. We gotta go.
Well,
Shut
I don't
up.
want to
Shut
tell,
up.
I don't want to say her dad's address.
Who's to say he doesn't want visitors? Like when I go to hotels, they say, "Do you want to have your?" Yeah, let's see who calls. Let's,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, see
you
who
were
stops
that.
by.
We're under.
Yeah. No,
That's
tell
true.
everyone that comes in that I'm here and see what happens.
You're right.
I can't believe I'm sitting in the seat Shania Twain was sitting in mere days ago.
That's right.
How about Shania Twain? Did you listen to that?
I didn't know. I'm not
Okay,
caught up on
okay,
anything.
okay,
Did it come
good.
out yesterday?
It did.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. You brought it up. I wouldn't have assumed you listened, but you happen to say
Give me
Shania.
like
So
a 48-hour window. to
Yeah,
listen to
they're
our
long
podcast.
as hell, too.
let me tell you something. She was spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean,
Several
fucking
people
dynamite.
brought it up to me unrelated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like, "Wow, her story's wild."
I
Yeah,
know.
I don't
had
think
no idea.
I don't think it was broadly known. I mean, she has a doc, but also I think we got a very fun version of her that I
She was
haven't
feeling spunky
heard
The
that day.
outfit
before.
alone was really
I
said volumes, I feel like.
I was blown away. She blew her nose. It's in the interview. You'll hear it. Every time she blew her nose, it was like watching a Disney character blow her nose.
He would
I
get really
hope-
obsessed with that.
She's so pretty.
She is.
like a
is.
glass doll or
That's
something.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what you said.
She's put together in a way that is weirdly empowering. I don't know how I'm delineating which one's which,
Right.
but I will say she's extremely put together, but I think for herself. If
That
that
don't
is
impress
at
me
all,
much, etc. It's all part of the brand.
Yes,
Yeah, let's
that's
go, girls.
Yeah, she's through and through.
God, I loved her.
I know.
Yeah.
She was fantastic.
She's a tough motherfucker, too.
I think anyone to be around for that long of a period of time, you kind of have to be. There was like divorce messiness, right, with the guy.
Let's start with she started performing at 8 years old in bars in northern
That's
Canada.
not good for anyone.
Starting at midnight when they stopped serving booze, but you could order as much as you wanted at midnight for your table and then stay till 2. So still apex of drunkenness, but the laws were such that that's when she could enter. So she would come in at 8 years old to the gnarliest fucking scene you've ever could imagine.
managing a lot of
They don't make them like they
fucking
used to.
and-
No.
You know, they're not going to come out cut that tough anymore because we
No.
can't allow that for our children.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're from LA.
I am from LA. I'm from the Valley. I grew up in Tarzana, Sherman Oaks. I lived in Chatsworth for a while. My parents were divorced, and my dad lived in North Hollywood, then bought a house in Tarzana. Then my mom was in Sherman Oaks, then got a house in Chatsworth, and then moved back to Sherman Oaks.
Got it. I already have a question.
Of course, this, by the way.
Is Chatsworth good? No. The answer is no. Nobody needs to go to Chatsworth.
A lot of pornography was made in Chatsworth.
Oh, sure.
That was
Called
kind
the
of
porn capital of the valley.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which means of the world.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like to be the capital of the valley, like there's a hierarchy.
That's a side note. Let's earmark that.
Yeah.
Porn.
Just, yes, it's worth earmarking.
Oh, yeah. All of
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
worth
yeah,
earmarking.
yeah, yeah.
You on your home movies.
Thank you.
Tell people what that
Shout
is.
out. If you don't listen to the show because all I talk
I
about.
think like 80% of my traffic comes from this show.
From Monica.
Yeah,
she talks
specifically.
about you every single fact check. I know you watch her videos and stuff,
I know.
but I don't know it's called home movies.
Exactly. So I have been referring to you as my chef since I found your videos.
What year was that, Monica?
I think it was potentially January 2021.
Oh, yeah, that checks out.
Oh.
That I
because I
found.
didn't do home movies until 2021.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was so sim because I found you on YouTube and I was watching your New York Times videos. And then I watched them all in like an evening.
How many were there? What kind
A
of
lot,
accomplishment
and
is this?
At least
You would
20.
know.
We're going to get
20?
into
Okay.
this.
What's the length of the videos?
10 to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they normally fall in like the 13 to 17 minute range. There are some hour-long specials.
Oh, the longer the better.
Yeah,
Oh,
more.
wow.
We can't get enough.
Where you cook
Can't
what?
stop filming.
Do you cook multiple things?
Yeah.
Or what? Okay.
It's like if they're longer, it's because I'm doing a party or an event. There's a Thanksgiving. There's a ham party, a hot dog party, which
Passover.
sounds like I'm 12, but I promise
Yeah.
it's very highbrow.
I know.
Elevated.
Yeah.
And you know, Liz went to a party over Christmas and
Liz
you were
Plank.
there and she said you brought your ham.
A friend of mine had his holiday party and weighed the ham and was like texting me before, like, where do I get the ham? Is bone in okay? Where do I get the boneless? Is pies not? What's the place? What's the deal? He lives in my neighborhood. So I was like, here's where you go. Here's what you do. It's going to be fine. And I show up and it's chaos. And there are so many people there. And not only that, but the ham is just sitting there.
Oh,
He's taken the ham out of the oven. No one is touching it because nobody wants to be the first person to carve a ham.
Oh, sure.
Sort of like a social contract.
Also a pain in the ass.
Right. And I look at the ham and my boyfriend's like, you're going to start carving the ham, aren't you? He's like, don't carve the ham. As a courtesy, but also I know you. And if you start carving the ham, you're going to be carving the ham all night.
Oh, I see.
And that is what happened.
Okay.
Okay.
But I was happy to do
You
it because
became the ham.
otherwise the ham
And you
wasn't getting
gotta-
carved.
Also,
Yeah.
you now have an excuse to talk as much as you want to people.
Yeah, or
like
not
you can.
talk.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Like you
Yes.
could be like, "Oh, I'm so busy." The right person saddles up next to you, then you got time all of a sudden.
So you immediately already hit upon the reason why I started cooking in the first place. I think that it is like a really specific way that I didn't even realize until much later and I started articulating it more. But I do this because I want to be social without being social. Like me hosting a party or me cooking for people, me doing things, I'm allowed to invite you into the space and you can be around me.
yeah, but I'm distracted.
I have to go immediately. We can't do small talk for a second longer, sadly.
Would you describe yourself as an introvert or an extrovert?
I forget which one I am, but I'm either an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe an ambivert. Because my wife,
Definitely.
similarly, she loves having people over and she loves cooking a lot for people.
Mm-hmm.
And then she loves to go up and start reading a book while everyone's over and
Oh,
just
yeah.
disappear.
I don't do that level, but I respect that so intensely. That is so ballsy and I love it, frankly.
I've had that experience and come to like it as well. I only make one dish that people request, which is my spaghetti, and I'm out for an hour and a half, but I'm around and same thing. I'm like, well, this is kind of a hack because I'm social, but I don't have to talk to anybody.
No, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Monica, have you had the pasta?
It's so good.
What is it?
It's a
I
spaghetti.
don't like
I
telling
need more details,
people-
but give me like a broad strokes 3-ingredient descriptor.
It's a combination of my grandmother's recipe and my mom's recipe. So my grandmother used to make this spaghetti that I have written out from the grandma that gave it to her. Here are the weird things: carrots, rosemary, onion. You start with 4 quarts of water. It's 3 hours long.
Wow.
And you make meatballs. My
From the
mother-
carrots?
No, not
Oh,
the carrots.
it's separate. Okay.
They're cooking inside this giant
Okay.
But the
fucking
meatball doesn't have
4-quart
Thank you.
pan.
Shook.
My mother made Prego, but
Yeah.
she spiced it up and I loved it. So mine's a combo of those two things. But I do use equal parts carrot and onion. So it's a tremendous amount of onion and carrot, sauteing in
sweet.
olive oil. And then I put the rosemary in and some tarragon.
I don't even
Then
think
I
I
ground
knew
all
about
the
that.
beef. And then I add a bunch of Prego. This is the part that no one's going to like. I do use Prego.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plot twist. I
My
love that.
grandma's is the paste, the whole tomatoes, the whole 9 yards. It fucking turns out to be Prego.
You know what? If it's Prego, it's Prego. Who are we to deny? It's Prego for a
Look,
reason.
some things you put in your mouth and it's just like, it's so good.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to.
Yeah. So I would just say the weird things are the rosemary, the carrot, and the tarragon. But
We're
then-
aligned on that.
Okay.
I agree that that's weird.
And then I'm putting a ton of garlic salt in as I want, and I'm tasting it. And then if I tip it, which I sometimes do, then it's a few tablespoons of sugar in there as well as it all percolates. The key for me is really fatty, good butcher ground beef, and I don't drain the fat, motherfucker.
No, don't do it.
You need the fat.
Stir it back in, emulsify it.
Yeah.
Right.
It becomes creamy.
The best is if I have the ultimate preparation, I will cook it either 5 hours before people are going to eat it, and then I get it in the fridge, and then I
Yeah.
reheat it, and then it's like,
Yeah, any sort of long cooked meat thing, the additional 12 to 24 after cooking is really where things happen.
Yes, that fat somehow disappears into everything else, and it's just
It's
getting
just better.
absorbed. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, this is bringing up something interesting. Do you feel,
I hope it's about ground beef.
yeah, well, ish. Do you feel uncomfortable when people tell you their recipes and you know, like, that's
shit.
not good, but you kind of have to make people feel
Good about
good
it.
about it?
I think that it depends if it's something that I do really well. What you just described, I have no idea what that could possibly even taste like.
Yeah.
So I can't knock it. But if you're like,
Yeah.
here's how I roast my chicken, and you said some crazy shit, I would be like, oh, definitely, and have a tough time with that. But
Yeah.
also, you have good taste. She's vouching for you. And so you say it's actually really good.
It is.
Here's what I can say about it. It's requested nonstop. And when I make it, everyone we're friends with comes over. And then when I make it on one of our pod trips, it's fucking gone in a day. I'm just basing it on that.
You're the Alison Roman of your friend group, is what you're saying.
I'm not even.
No,
I
I'm
mean-
trying to be.
I mean,
trying to be
well, you are
Alison.
becoming her.
I am.
Listen, this is perfect. This is one of the principal differences between you and I. You follow directions great, and you're an A student.
That's right.
And I'm like a renegade punk rock. I didn't read anything. I'm just throwing shit.
Right.
And then when either of us have a victory, it seems to threaten the whole theology.
System.
Yeah.
It throws everything off balance. It's not what you agreed to. It's not the moral
Yes.
contract.
That's
It's
right.
not, yeah,
Yes.
I hear that.
One of our longest debates was interviewing someone who was learning to work with wood, and they were watching YouTube tutorials.
Meal
And I said,
prepare.
stop doing that. The point is to be creative.
Feel it out.
No,
Fucking make
but
some
no.
bad shit.
I
Make some
know.
bad shit, and then makes a little bit
And then
better
your
shit.
hand gets
It wa-
sawed off.
What did you do if you watch the video and you make a perfect birdhouse because you followed every single? What did we do?
Soulless birdhouse.
Yes.
That birdhouse is not full of love. That
It's
birdhouse
not.
is
Wow,
disgusting.
You see what I'm
But
saying?
I do, that said, I feel like the potential for physical harm with cooking is so much smaller than when we're talking bandsaws.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ceramics, go ahead, live your life, throw the ball,
Yeah.
make the wheel,
Teach
whatever.
yourself, yeah.
But woodworking,
Yeah.
you might
A
want to
lathe.
watch a video.
Yeah.
Well, even chopping an onion, there's a way.
Let's talk
There
about
is a way,
that.
and
Let's-
that
we-
upsets me
When
when I see
people
people
do it
doing
wrong.
that wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I have a method. I don't know what the right way is.
You do it right.
I do it right.
Wow.
I cut a grid.
Yeah.
But by the way, I just figured
He
that
just-
out.
You're a natural. You're blessed from the inside.
No, I just think I'm a good mechanic.
You're using logic, which I think specifically with working with vegetables and things like that, they tell you how they want to be cut. If you take an onion and I tell you to chop it, the worst thing you could do is just take the whole thing unpeeled and like slice off a piece of it and then start doing stuff with it.
start
with a knife. It's like,
putting
no.
your knife all the way.
Nothing about this spherical thing with a root and a stem
Yeah.
indicates that that's how it wants to be treated.
It's precarious. There's only one way it works.
yeah, you make a flat side,
It goes
you do the
to
thing.
fucking
It's like,
hell in a
yeah.
handbasket in a second you make the wrong
people
cut.
don't know that, I would say. I mean, I learned it from your video. I
Great.
didn't know. I'm
You
sure
could
it
have
was
learned it watching me cook the
I
spaghetti.
could have. I could have.
We could make like a 4-hour supercut of all the footage we have of me cutting onions.
Oh my God. I love it.
It's like a fireplace channel of just me doing
oh my
onion
God,
cutting.
that'd be so
yeah,
soothing
we
for
should
me.
do that.
Do you feel the pressure when you're defining yourself as a chef to cut those things really fast? Because to me, that seems like when you watch movies and shit, it's just all about the speed. And I can imagine feeling this crazy pressure that I got to be like, "Rrrr."
No, not to gender it, but I feel like that men do that. Men are like, I'm a chef. I don't even call myself a chef anymore because it's too nebulous, all the things that I do in my work and in the way that I try to present myself. I'm decidedly not a chef and I'm decidedly not like that, where I'm like, take your time, do it right. You know, and I say like it upsets me when people cut an onion wrong. It's more just I turn into a Nona. I'm like, I'm worried for your fingers. I feel like you're going to hurt somebody.
Yes.
It's hacking the onion. I don't want food waste. You know, it's not because like you're doing it wrong, but I don't feel pressure to either do things well or fast, to be honest.
This would be my analogy to that, which is my mother-in-law was over. We were watching some show that had reenactments. And Kristen and I were audibly laughing at some of the choices some of the actors were making. And she said, you guys are so mean and critical. And I said, well, yeah, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it would be like, you're a nurse. If you watch someone try to draw blood by sticking a carrot in someone's arm, what would you do? You would laugh because you know that's not how one draws blood. Like, you're not being critical or you know what should be done.
You're like, that carrot belongs in the sauce.
We happen to know what you
In the
do when you
meatball.
get shot. It's not that.
And I think that that's it too. I feel very protective of my line of work because I've been doing it forever and it's like all I've really done professionally. And I take it really for as not serious as I present. And I'm like, anyone can cook and everybody take it easy and have fun. But I personally internalize it as like, this is a thing that I do and I feel protective of it.
It's your identity.
Yeah, it
Everyone
is.
defends their identity.
Yeah.
And protects
And
it.
you're really smart. And I think if I were you, maybe I would feel like, no, this actually requires some skill and some brains that I have. Whereas I think most people could look at cooking and be like, oh, anyone can do that, or that's easy. And if I were you, I'd be like, no, I'm smart and I chose to do something that requires that.
Yeah, that's how I approached it. And I think that that's where my admittedly shitty attitude comes towards people that I feel like don't take it seriously, like on social media.
Like TikTok.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's my craft. I could lighten up about that, but I feel like every person now has that. I know photographers that feel the same way. And they're like, oh, you have an Instagram? Like, I've dedicated my life to this.
Every industry, actors are all of a sudden like, who are influencers? What are YouTube stars? Oh, why are people acting on TikTok?
It makes me feel very old to be like, get off my lawn. You know, it's like, well,
Yeah. I know it's
we're all on the
true.
lawn now, baby.
Now, here's a really curious situation. You hold Alison in this very high esteem. But what's really funny is you've never tried anything she's made. So
What do you mean?
Like personally.
you've never eaten something
Oh,
she
I was
prepared.
like, I made everything.
You could be succumbing to great production value.
Oh my God. No, it's not because I've made the recipes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and you've had
they're amazing.
success on your own with her guidance.
Well, I think that is the ultimate parasocial relationship in that you have actually no idea if I'm good personally.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. But I think by virtue of the fact that you have success and other people have success, there's like a network of trust.
Yes.
And I think that if my first book came out and people made recipes and they didn't work or they didn't taste very good or they're like, it doesn't look like the photo, no one would tell anyone to buy it.
Yeah.
Like no one's that charming. I mean, well, that's not true. But
people
I'm not that charming. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm not carrying this trust on bubbly personality. Like it really is in the work, I think. But the fact that you don't know if I personally can do it kind of is irrelevant because I'm teaching you to do it.
Exactly.
And that's worth
Although
a lot
I am
more.
dying to try it.
Yeah.
Try something
We can
made by
arrange
your
that.
hands.
We can do that.
I will say the word around the campfire. Monica's been hosting all these women's
nights.
only events at her house, of which my
Women's
wife attends and other friends of mine, and they're always gossiping about how sensational Monica is becoming as a chef. So,
She's
or
coming
a
into her
cook,
own,
or
and I
whatever
love
the
that.
fuck you guys want to
Soon
call
you
it.
won't need me at all, Monica.
That is not true. So that's my issue. I am not fucking
Creative.
around on the birdhouse. Like I am following those recipes. I'm watching, and we'll get into this. I had sort of a realization this weekend because I was sick. I watched 12 hours of. I can't even say. I'm
Yeah,
so
say it,
embarrassed.
say
I'm
it,
so
say it, yeah.
actually embarrassed.
She's been nervous all week to admit this to you.
It just over and over.
Oh my God. I've never consumed myself that way. I feel like you could give me some notes.
Well, hold on.
But does it scare? I
Before
want
we
to
get
be
into
honest,
notes,
that doesn't scare
so there was some fear about how that'd be received. I had an opinion of it.
you can really.
Well,
be
you were
honest.
sick.
Yeah.
You weren't like, I had plans, I canceled them all.
Have you noticed that people consume these videos in a
Yes.
self-soothing way?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, first, let's back up even further. We both read this article that was saying that people with high anxiety often watch the same movie over and over again. And we were like, oh my God, that's Monica. Like she watched Contagion during the pandemic like 13 times.
Oh, I watched that. I watched Outbreak. I watched,
See?
what's the other one? Gwyneth Paltrow's also in it.
Oh.
Not Contagion, though.
No. Or maybe it was that I was watching that and then I watched Talented Miss Ripley where she's also in with Jude Law or like or Matt Damon.
yeah, yeah.
It was like the triangulation of Gwyneth, Matt Damon, whatever. But I watched every sort of pandemic related film.
Yes, because you needed an end.
I was like, what's the worst that could happen? Let's watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Well, the explanation was people with anxiety like knowing how something's going to turn out. That it's soothing to enter into something chaotic that you know how it's going to turn out. We were saying it's the ultimate metaphor, cooking. You start with chaos. All these different ingredients, they're different shapes. They seemingly have nothing in common. And then at some point, they fuse into a singular product, cohesive, controlled, and tasty.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I see the appeal if you have anxiety.
Yeah. And I've actually never heard it articulated that way, but I struggle very much with not knowing.
Yeah.
In general, I'm like, where are we going? Just tell me where we're going and what's going to happen when we get there.
Right.
Like nothing I can do to change, but like I need to know. And if I don't,
Yes.
that I can't handle. And so the fact that I do what I do is very interesting because I don't follow recipes. I start from nothing. I start from blank canvas, ingredients, and I just kind of go and like it finds itself somehow.
It seems like if you wanted to be kind of scientific about it and you had some ideas, maybe rutabaga and sour cream taste good together. I don't know, whatever the thing is.
Rutabaga, wild card.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was
Did not see
that
really
coming.
came out of nowhere.
Well, I wanted to be a plausible curiosity. Would you ever start 4 identical things and then add differently so that there's some kind of relative to one another you could taste? Or is it just, let's try this, it'll be what it'll be, and then I'll decide if it's good? Or do you ever have like 3 going at the same time?
That feels way too calculated and way
Okay.
too A-B for me. I almost always work from a place of these words sound good together.
Yeah.
Or here's what I'm presented with, i.e. if I'm at the grocery store, at a farmer's market, or bodega, whatever, wherever it is that I'm shopping for food and they have things available. If I'm coming up with something new for that purpose, if I'm not just like cooking because I like really want bolognese, if I'm like, I'm going to develop something specific for an assignment or a book or a newsletter. Or sometimes I'm just like, wow, those words sound good together. Like dilly bean stew. Like when I thought of that, I just thought of words.
Oh, so good.
And then I made a version that was kind of shitty that had actual green beans. And I was like, why the fuck would I put green beans in a stew? Never did it before. And there's a reason I've never done it before. But never saw the light of day. It wasn't very good. And then I pivoted and did some other stuff with it. But I was like, oh, that's what this wants to be. And I just made it once and that was it.
Okay, great. Percentage-wise, what do you think you bat? Edison had, I don't know, 20,000 inventions. 5 of them were good.
patent.
You know, like,
I'd say my ads are better than that, but
Okay.
I'm also not trying to do electricity. But I feel like nowadays, I'm not including desserts or baking because that always involves a bit more trial and error because you can't change it
math.
along the way. I would say like a 98%. I'm pretty dialed in at this point.
and you said you have a boyfriend.
I do, yeah.
So is he generally the recipient of these? Does he enjoy this? Or is he like, oh my God, I got to try another new thing?
He loves it.
He loves
every
it.
second.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I have all willing participants in my life.
He could love you and be like you or me, which is like, I don't love the unknown. So I ain't trying to sit down each night to try something unknown.
Oh, yeah. And it's definitely not like
I'm a
that.
creature of habit.
Honestly, these days I haven't been doing the unknown that much. I've been in a
Yeah.
place of, I want this. And along the way, something might come out of that where I'm like, I want chicken soup. And along the way, I might decide to do some stuff to it that results in something new. But at its core, it's chicken soup. I'm not like
Right.
whimsy in the kitchen, tooling around and being like, what about this late creation with rutabaga and sour cream?
Yeah.
But it's more like I'm playing my own hits, not
Yeah.
things that I've already done, but what I need in the moment.
Yeah. Do you do this? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay. I'm more interested than I even expected.
Than you thought you would be, I
I'm
know.
kinda
After the
energized. I think
birdhouse,
it's your
it was all downhill.
It's your personality.
Thank you.
This is like when we had Lane Norton on, by the way, who's Dax's dream boy.
My deity.
He's a muscly.
He's a scientist. He's also a world champion, heavy power lifter.
With a stunning
all,
physique.
all natural.
Yeah. And he's
No
really sweet
augmentation.
and really
Okay.
nice and very smart.
And he's a genius, too.
But he came when I saw his name on what we were going to do today. I was like, do I even need to go today? But then as soon as he started, I was like, oh, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Like,
was
I got
like, I
questions.
think this is going to be that. in
Get the 4 of us
reverse.
in a room together. Who knows
Oh
what's going to
my
happen?
God. Wait, but real quick, can you put a pin in your
Yes.
thought? Boyfriend. So this is what's weird with these parasocial relationships. And I feel this from the world as well. You're doing cooking videos.
Yes.
But then you'll say something small about your boyfriend or you got broken up with or something. And everyone watching is now immediately invested in way more than the cooking video,
Yeah.
but your whole life and who are you dating? And that must feel crazy. You're like, I'm doing a cooking video and in your comments people are asking, tell us about the boyfriend. That must
Well,
feel
you experience that, I'm sure.
yeah, and it feels weird. Although
Yeah.
here
So we have different reactions to that. Going back now, she said, well, I don't want to tell her that. And I said, why wouldn't she love that? You're like a smart, creative, successful person who has
Yeah.
great interest. Like, so flattering. She said, no, it's like, I don't want if someone knows everything about me from the show. And I said, well, let's get into that. Why? They've already passed the litmus test. You are yourself. You are your true self.
Totally.
And they're still attracted to you. We're starting on third base. But for her, I hit her with this theory when it came out,
Yeah.
was her whole life has been outsider looking in, learning to assimilate, learning other people, adapting to other people. So it's just uncomfortable because there's no practice with people coming at her trying to adapt to her. I think what she's really feeling is just the newness of this and no practice in responding to that or being able to take that. There's nothing intrinsically weird about someone being interested.
No, but there's a large swath of information shared. I think when you're a regular person, i.e. a person who like just does cooking or is like on a podcast, and all of a sudden you find yourself in that position, you're like, well, of course I've just been myself, but it went from 2 people listening or 2 people watching to quadruple that, to double that, to, whatever. So then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I've been the same. And I've been the same person and revealed the same amount of information, except no one was listening and now everyone's listening. You're dealing with that all of a sudden. People say all the time, they're like, oh, I saw you were in so, oh, is that creepy? I'm like, no, I put it on Instagram.
Right.
I know where this information's going.
Yeah.
In the same way that shooting a YouTube video or whatever, or being on a podcast, you're like, I am just being myself, and there's a certain level of awareness of the information that you're passing through. And there's a lot of stuff that I don't share for that reason. That was something I had to learn. I became a lot more protective of my private life the more intense it got.
Yeah.
Because it feels weird.
But can I also compare it to this? I think a lot of us have experienced this. I know Monica and I both have. We've already talked about it a bunch. You like somebody, you're in love with them. Somehow they end up showing interest in you back, and this weird switch flips. Just like, oh, well, if they like me, I must have misdiagnosed how appealing they were. Your self-esteem is so low that if this person you were in love with loves you back, your first thought isn't I'm worthy of it. It's that I misassessed how
they're not
status
as good as I thought
and
they
good
were.
they
Yeah,
are.
their taste is now bad.
Yes.
And now I'm less interested.
Oh, I guess they weren't that hot shit because they like me. I think that's at play in this.
It is. I think you're right.
Wait, you're obsessed with me and think my life is cool? Then you must be really weird.
Yeah.
And
I devalue you now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it all comes from a lack of feeling worthy of the attention or the interest or the anything.
Yeah, but when you're the pursuer, you're the one with the crush, you're the one with the fan, you're the one with the whatever, you're like, I admire you. And when it flips, you're like, oh, they're seeing something that's not real. And if we ever meet in person, it's going to be a huge fucking disappointment.
Yes, that I brought up too.
That's huge. And
Yes.
that, I think if you've ever done online dating or whatever, that's a huge element there where you're like, oh, well, you're only interested in me before you meet me.
Yeah.
Because once you meet me, it's all going to fall apart.
But you can't win either way.
Yeah,
And
but
then
I-
if they're super into you, you're like, oh, they must be terrible because they like me.
But I had
That's
that
also
anxiety meeting you, Monica, my friend who I was talking about earlier, and she's like, well, you already know Monica's such a fan. And I was like, I know, but what if she meets me? And it's like, oh, womp womp. And
yeah, I
that's-
felt the same way.
But that's why when I cook for people who know who I am, it's terrifying. Because I'm still just a regular person. I burn shit all the time.
Yeah.
My stuff is probably too salty. But I'm afraid that people are like, oh, I put her on such a pedestal as like being this person that in real life, she's like a fallible human who airs, and I don't like her voice. But you knew what my voice sounded like.
I like your voice.
Thank you.
I didn't know what your voice sounded like, but I enjoy it.
Thank you.
I like
Yeah.
it. Do you get that? Because you said that in one of your videos that her voice is weird.
Oh, I get everything. I don't keep tabs on it anymore. That was more of just like a joke because in that spirit of being like, you put yourself out there for anything. You're like, I want to make a thing and I'm going to self-publish. I'm going to self-publish a podcast or a book or a newsletter or a YouTube channel. And I'm making this thing. And the people that want to be there will be there. They'll listen, they'll subscribe. But you still get so many people who don't want to be there that feel the need to weigh in.
I
And you're
know.
like, why are you here?
Yeah, you don't like me, so why are
They're like,
you?
enough
Well-
talking, lady. Get to the rest. I'm like, there are thousands of cooking videos on the internet. I am but one woman. And if you don't care for me, then keep it moving.
Yeah.
This is kind of a well-documented phenomenon, though, that occurred both with Rush Limbaugh and Howard Stern. So both those radio personalities had significant percentage of their regular audience that hated their guts. Now, I was one of them on Rush Limbaugh. My old job in college was I drove cars back and forth from Detroit to LA. And so I'm driving forever. And if I was tired, I'd find Rush Limbaugh and he'd make me so angry. And I'd be arguing in the car with him and and it was a source of fuel, right? And so I know Stern published all this stuff where like they'd interview people who hate him but listen to him. And then they interview people who love him. And the common denominator was, why do you listen to him? Because I want to hear what he's going to say next. It's like the same thing,
Yeah.
yet one's fuel for anchor. One's So yeah, a phenomenon of people maybe hate watching you. On some part, you got to go, well, look, man, it's a business.
It's very easy to see that in not just the radio analogy, but like reality TV shows. Where it's like, oh, these people are the worst. I cannot stop watching. You know,
you're
people are-
simultaneously acting above the thing and then consuming it like a vampire. You
Yeah.
can't
Right.
get it out. Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think most people that watch the stuff that I do, not to sound nerdy, but they're there to learn. They're there to have a good time and they're there to learn. And I think that they do. I don't know if this ever happens to you, but people think they're sending like an Instagram story to a friend, but they're responding to you.
Oh.
And they'll be like, she's so annoying, but she has great taste. Or like, I can't stand her personality, but her recipes do fuck. And I'm like, thank you
I
so
like
much.
that
Yeah. And I'm like,
one.
you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah.
The recipes do fuck.
Yeah,
I really
they
like that.
do fuck.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
That reminds me, I one time got in trouble. Ooh, it's too complicated, but I had something in a movie about a real person and they didn't like how that was perceived. But ultimately what I was saying, and I said in the movie is, and I'd fuck her. And I was saying, that's my own self-centered perspective, which is you literally, Alison, could say anything about me. Like post this interview, you're talking to friends and you're like, he was arrogant, he smelled terrible, and I totally want to fuck him. Everything's good, no matter what was said
That's
before.
where you place.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Value.
Exactly. And I place value on my work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not to be like my work is unimpeachable because there's errors and typos and I make mistakes constantly. But at the end of the day, my personality is my personality and I can't change it. And you have to sort of evolve past the self-loathing of it all.
You're
when
the
you're
delivery device of the
yes.
nicotine.
And I'm like, you know what? But the work is good.
Yeah.
And like, take me out of it if you want. I don't need you to love me as a person. But like the work is undeniable. You know, like
Right.
I'm saying not always, but that would be my preference.
Better than the reverse. Where they're there
Exactly.
for your personality.
But they're like, oh, but her recipes don't work. That would break my heart.
we don't have that cover fire. We're the product.
That's why it's a little
don't.
different from when you're talking about your boyfriend and you're just sort of slipping it in and then people are dying for those real moments. Ours is not like that because we are being ourselves. We're talking about our lives.
Do you feel I'm doing this serious thing and now you're so distracted by this trivial thing, like it's somehow undermining the work you're doing, which I would hope doesn't because it shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's just, we're all human monkeys and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this person I like has a partner. What's he like?
Yeah, exactly.
Tall? Like it's
He's
just
tall. Yeah.
totally
good
innocuous.
job.
And
At this point, I know it's no disrespect to ask me what my lipstick color is. I know that that doesn't mean you're devaluing the work. If I was that serious about my work, I wouldn't ever put anything else out there. And part of why I have loved this podcast for so long is that I think that what you get at with people of all industries is the underlying desire to be seen by somebody. Yes, there's this give and take of putting yourself out there publicly, but part of why we are ourselves, quote unquote, on such a large scale is because we're like, we want to be seen.
Yeah.
That's our
Oh,
ultimate
God. And
desire.
approval.
Exactly. And there's other underlying currents there. But if I was super secure and didn't, quote, need to be seen by anybody, I would just put out recipes and give you nothing.
Yes.
well, that's why it'd be very easy for anyone that's critical of any of us to go like, y'all are exhibitionists,
Totally.
which is 100% true. So whatever comments people have, that's what you wanted.
You're doing that.
Totally.
Which is-
you asked for this.
Yeah.
It's foundationally
You're like,
true.
I didn't ask for this, but and like when it's good, and when it's bad, you're like, but that's bad. And now it's all part of the same fucking soup.
But by the
And
way, it
so-
would be a boring game to play
Yeah.
if it wasn't negative at times.
Yeah,
if there
also
was
think
no,
how
if
boring
like,
you would be.
you're playing a game.
Exactly.
Yes, and if there's no pitfall, if there's no alligator that bites the player, why are you playing it?
Yeah. I think also it makes people not that interesting. You know those people, especially in like your early 20s, where you're like, oh, nothing bad has ever happened to you. No one has ever said no to you. No one has ever not loved
Dumped
you.
you.
No one has
Yeah.
like nothing has ever happened. And you're only now in your early 20s or whatever, because that tends to be the time in your life where things start to happen, where you're like, oh, you're reacting so poorly to this, or you're unable to deal with this in a way, or it's melting your personality because it's been
You have
so
no
smooth.
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, sort of, you said you don't like not knowing. First of all, firstborn Virgos.
I mean, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, it is in our blood.
It is.
It's in the stars.
It's literally in the stars. Dax is a second-born Capricorn.
Oh, wow.
Middle child Capricorn, actually.
Wow.
Like,
A
you
Capricorn
go,
and a
wow, as if that
Virgo
means
hosting.
anything. What does
I
that
know.
mean?
Oh, we know it means something.
What does it mean?
We don't know. I don't know.
I'm so skeptical of it, but she does follow this site, and every time she sends it to one,
Which one?
it's bonkers.
Co-star.
Oh, yeah.
And, they do like the, why are you
like this.
I just got to
Yes.
give you the highlight one. We were in England and then we went to Paris for like 2 days and I was in a real spell and I had had enough of the whole thing and 2 little kids and all this stuff.
You really broke down.
I was having a moment and I took to just wearing my noise canceling headphones and listening to music when it was getting too stressful for me. It was like, it was that or I was going to go find drugs.
It was like, check, please.
That's where we were at. I couldn't go to a meeting, whatever. And so we get home and like 3 days later, this thing is on there that says what they'd bring on a vacation. And it said Capricorn, noise canceling headphones.
I couldn't. I was like, they're listening to us.
They are.
No.
And they do know.
And they do.
Yeah.
That one got me.
Okay, but being fearful of what's coming up, do you think that has to do with your parents and divorce?
Doesn't it always all have to do with our parents?
I know.
Yeah, for sure.
How old were you when they got divorced?
2.
A lot of moving, I heard as well.
Yeah. My schedule also changed a lot when I was a kid. I would be with my dad every other weekend, and then it was every other week, and then it was every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it wasn't like I had a sense of where I am or like a house necessarily. So I think that probably has
Did
something
you have
to do with
step parents?
it. I had a few stepdads, and I have a stepmom who my dad married when I was 4. They had 2 kids together. They're still married. They're still together. But my mom is a different story.
Yeah, same. 3 stepdads and a dad?
2 stepdads and a few step boyfriends.
Okay. Uh-huh.
LTRs, long-term relationships.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And did they run the gamut of likability?
They did. There was one that I really loved. We're not like so much in touch these days, but I know that if I needed to be, I could. But I think that has more to do with the fact that I, at that point, was not super interested in forming a real relationship with any of them, to be frank, because I just wasn't sure if they were going to be around. It was like this pressure from my mom to be nice and like do that. And I was just like, I don't want to be attached because it's probably not going to stick around.
Yeah.
Not necessarily he won't stick around, but the relationship won't stick around.
What did she do for a living?
She's a court reporter. So she had her own business. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Does she have carpal tunnel?
No, she doesn't.
No repetitive stress disorders?
No.
Wow.
I know.
What a
She would
beast.
sometimes wear wrist braces in the time of working. I think there was some stress involved, but not like long-term effects.
Would she occasionally collect insane stories from the courtroom? They must have occurred in LA.
Definitely. She did mostly depositions. She would sometimes go to court, and she did some like high-profile cases, like depositions.
Yeah.
I forget which ones she did. Not OJ, I wish. Like imagine. But stuff in like the early mid-90s and definitely had some stories to tell.
What'd your dad do?
He did a lot of different things. He now works for a company. He brokers the relationship between chemists and botanists and cosmetic companies, basically. So like finding symbiotic relationships for the products that are being extracted or developed and finding them homes within like the cosmetic industry.
Nobody knows what their dad does.
Mine was easy.
It doesn't define
Yours
him.
was easy.
Sold cars.
Yeah.
My dad sold cars too.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, for a
So he's
large period of my life.
Charming guy then?
Yeah, he sold clothes before I was born, like downtown LA garment district, and then did cars. Sold Ben Affleck and Matt Damon their car right after they sold Good Will Hunting.
No.
Yes.
Here we go. We're
Can you
glad
believe
we
it?
asked. What did they buy? What,
They bought
what
a Jeep.
happened?
He worked at a Jeep dealership.
They collectively bought one or they bought
They
two
came in
Jeeps
together.
and bought one Jeep?
I think they may have bought one Jeep. I need a fact check on this, but I remember my dad telling me at the time, and it was like,
Yeah.
a lot of formative things came out of that. Like that, I remember being like
Holy shit.
a weird celebrity experience at a young age, being like, I'm registering that this is cool, but I don't really know why yet.
Yes.
Somebody turned a car into the dealership that had been stolen. And when it was returned to the lot, they had left a binder of CDs, and my dad gave it to me.
Oh, wonderful.
And in this binder of CDs was like Weezer and like Blues
wow.
Traveler and Sheryl Crow, and sort of like began my music collection.
Eclectic mix.
You can't steal a car without Blues Traveler. That's what
Right.
I've been told.
This is a fun.
Ben and Matt. I can't believe it.
I know.
They're the loves of my life. Like they
Yeah.
penetrated.
Oh.
I hope
I
so.
would. I mean,
would.
would. They
in a
did
perfect
emotionally.
world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
TBD.
Yeah.
There's still time.
I know, it's true.
I one time asked Monica if ideally it would be a 3-way, and she said absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was
Oh,
like, that's
wow.
very advanced. Yeah.
That
that's
is
the
advanced.
level of,
I feel like I would need a one-on-one.
Well, I'd like all of it. You know,
Yeah.
I'd like
One-on-one,
one-on-one time,
two-on-one.
and then
You know, my instinct, I don't know either of them. I would think that if it were a threesome, they would make it more about each other in like a one-upmanship, and you wouldn't get the pure experience.
okay, but
So you'd need to do
Matt
it.
is very generous. By the way, you have to take a peek in the bathroom later. There's a big stand of me and Matt Damon.
Wow.
And it's
Embracing.
the best moment of my life.
Yeah.
We'll have to get a picture of you with that as like a meta moment.
Growing up in LA, you're in the valley, so you're in the shadow of Hollywood.
Wow, dramatic. I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
You are. It's like you're very close, and yet you're not close. There's
Yeah.
like such a chasm between Chatsworth and Hollywood, albeit
Proper.
a 12-mile crow fly, right?
Yeah.
It's very close. I'm from Detroit. Monica's from Atlanta. Our obsession with this place in Hollywood and stars, I wonder what it's like when you're occasionally seeing people. Does it up your interest in it, or does it disillusion it? What happens?
I mean, I left at 18. I left as soon as I could. I had no
Right.
interest in sticking around, but because I grew up in an age without phones and social media, there was nothing to draw me to it. The culture was so far away. And as I got older, my dad and I would like go to Langer's, we'd go to Tito's Tacos, we would go into LA and do stuff, but I never even thought about it being a different place. And it only became that way when I left LA, moved to other places, and I met people that were like, oh, where'd you go to school? I went to Beverly High. I went to Crossroads. And I was like, oh, I went to Chaminade in West Hills. We did not grow up in the same place. It's like if you grew up in Manhattan or in like Hoboken. You did not grow up in New York if you grew up in Hoboken.
Yeah.
But you're driving by studios. And so for me, the first time I saw a studio, I was like, oh my God, that's where they make
is
movies.
exciting.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
like Disneyland. But because it's everywhere.
Yeah, it didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't preternaturally attracted to it because I grew up here. I never thought about being on TV or being in a movie or being in film or entertainment industry at all.
Would you see celebrities, though, semi-regularly or never?
I'm sure I did. We would go to Balboa Park and play in the park or whatever, and my dad was flying a kite with me, and like this guy started flying a kite with his daughter, and it was Tom Petty. And my dad loves to tell that story.
Yeah.
More like that type of celebrity interaction where it was just like they live among us.
Right.
You know, and you don't really think of it as interesting or different when you're a kid, especially. But as an adult, I'm like, my dad flew a kite with Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of my hunch. It's just
Yeah.
like, it is what it is.
Well, like for
Standard
your
business.
kids, that's a much different situation, I guess. But still, it just becomes
Oh, it's completely normal. Ultimately, I think it's great because there's nothing magical about it. This is
Exciting.
normal fucking people that are kind of
Totally.
boring in real life. I
Yeah.
can't imagine she's like, oh, I want to be a star.
I don't know, there's like the Nepo baby conversation where it's like, well, yeah, if you're around it, it's going to seem like a thing that you might want. It's available. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I like this. This is appealing. I like the lifestyle. I like the energy. I'm already accustomed to the grind of it all.
yeah.
They speak the language.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I can do that. I want to do that.
Well, what I hope is that they go, my parents and their friends have really fun jobs. They get to hang out all the time together and be creative together. And then what I would hope they don't have is like a fantasy of being famous. It seems it's going in that direction, but what do I know? Time will tell.
Got to get them into birdhouses ASAP
They will
Believe
be
me.
mechanical.
with no instructions.
They'd probably be good at it.
Okay, so you leave LA, as you just mentioned, and you go to San Francisco when you're 18 or 19.
I left to go to Santa Cruz to go to college. I dropped out of college to move back to LA.
Why didn't it work out in Santa Cruz?
I was too young and too poor. I was a nanny for like Google execs.
Okay.
And I was taking classes at the community college up there. I didn't really show any interest in going to college until my senior year. And then my parents were like, well, you only want to go to college because your friends want to go to college.
Oh.
And I was like, well, so?
That's
And
a
I was
good
like, I
reason.
still want to go.
Take any reason I can get.
And then they were like, well, we're not going to pay for you to go to just any school because you also don't know what you want to do. And you can go to community college somewhere and then transfer 2 years later. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll do that. And then I just ended up dropping out and not doing that.
Did you do shrooms in the redwoods up there?
I absolutely did.
Yeah,
for
me
the first
too.
time. I did it in the petrified forest in Petaluma, which was considerably north, like Northern California.
Yeah.
I was 18 or 19,
Yeah.
and it was
Life changing?
kind of, yeah. I like
Yeah.
wept in the bathroom for 18 hours. It was really wild. I don't think I've ever been as high on mushrooms since.
Yeah.
I think that,
You went
which
hard.
is common. I think most people
Go
really
hard.
fucking do it, and then they're like, now I do it a little differently. It was like a formative experience for sure.
Yeah, Santa Cruz is really indelibly linked with shrooms, I feel like.
Yeah. And it was also just indelibly linked with the start of my independence because I moved when I was 18, or I guess I was 19 because I had gone to Santa Monica City College for a year
Oh my God.
at 18 and then transferred. And then a year into Santa Cruz, I decided to come back to LA and work in restaurants. So I was going to go to culinary school, but I never ended up going to that either. But I worked in LA for a year and a half. And then right before I turned 21, moved to San Francisco and
And you
I
worked
never
at a
came back.
fancy place there.
I did, yeah. It was
Yeah.
called Sona, which anyone who's been in LA for 30 years would know. But it was a very small, specific, bougie, fine dining restaurant with like very young person energy.
That's not the place that Samin worked, is it?
No.
Okay, what was that
No.
place? That's more like Oakland or Berkeley. She
Chez
worked-
Panisse.
Yeah, okay, okay. So it was not that.
No. This was called Sona's in West Hollywood. It's now the Nice Guy or whatever. It's like a club on La Cienega and
Oh,
Melrose.
wow.
Oh, and then you go to New York.
Then I go to New York.
What age is New York?
24.
Okay, have you learned enough as a cook. I don't know what word we want to
Yeah,
use.
cook.
What pronoun? You're not a chef. You're not a cook.
I would say
As
cook.
a food jockey, did
Yes.
you did you jockey the food well enough that when you got there, did you go straight to Momofuku?
I
then?
did,
You
yeah.
did.
I knew someone that I worked with at Quince in San Francisco. I was a pastry chef there. I was like the pastry sous chef. And they knew someone who had worked with Christina Tosi at Momofuku and was like, oh, my friend just opened this bakery for Dave Chang, who's at the time like wasn't.
A celebrity.
No one
Yeah.
knows him. Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I vaguely know what that is. It was also like pre-Instagram. It's just so weird that we get so much of our information about pop culture now through our phones. And so before I'm like, what did I do? Like I got jobs on Craigslist.
Yeah.
But was like, oh, that would be cool. So I wrote her an email and was like, I'm going to move to New York if you're looking for bakers, because I had worked in these really intense fine dining experiential restaurants and working 14 hours a day, just burning myself out, that the idea of going to a bakery felt really soothing to me. I was like, you know what, that I can do. And it will allow me the free time to like really figure out what I'm going to do with my life, because I knew that it wasn't working in restaurants anymore.
Okay, now the salacious part of this interview. So my girlfriend of 9 years worked at many restaurants, and it was my experience via her, and also from reading Kitchen Confidential, that I'd have to say that the food industry, if it's not the leader in sex and drugs and alcoholism, I don't know which one would top it. Maybe like
Hollywood.
high finance
I would
or
say
something.
like rock and roll.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah.
know, like in
Maybe.
72.
Yeah, maybe. Did it live up to that stereotype when you were in it?
Not for me personally, but I think I was too young and earnest to like be a part of that. I was also kind of sheltered. I was almost always the only woman. I was always the youngest person. People didn't necessarily include me in their sex, drug, and rock and roll escapades. I think that they treated me like little sister energy. And I was drinking underage at that first restaurant because I was 19, 20 when I worked there. And then when I moved to San Francisco at 21, I was drinking so fucking much every night. I was like puking every day before work. But I was also just turned 21. And I
Yeah.
was living in a new city and I had new coworkers and got roofied at a bar. And like, it was like, you know, a time. But I think that most people at that age are doing that.
In college.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, was it the industry or was it my age? It was definitely that vibe of you finish service, you go out all night, you sleep until noon, and you go to work and you do it again. Because there's no intermittent responsibility, it allows you to do that.
You're almost like sketch performers as well. Like your
Exactly.
job starts at 4
Totally.
p.m.
Absolutely.
Was there a discernible difference in the New York culture versus the San Francisco culture?
I think it was specific to the restaurants because when I worked at Momofuku, it was all women who worked there pretty much.
Oh,
there
wow.
was like maybe one or two men who would filter through. We worked with the restaurants adjacent. Like we worked with Sambar and Co. and all that. And like they were almost always all men.
Yeah.
And so it was like this real dichotomy.
Oh, this is like the girls' school and the boys' school.
It kind of did feel like that. And, you know, they were a restaurant, we were a bakery. And I
Right.
think classically, in my experience at restaurants, if you're a line cook, you kind of look down on a pastry cook because they don't work as hard as you. They're not as talented as you. They're not doing real cooking. In quotes.
I didn't know this, but tell me, because not as many items are ordered, the
Yeah,
pace
maybe
is slower?
the pace is a little slow. I mean, it can be. It wasn't for me. It's just a different way of cooking. It's a
Okay.
different way of
and
working
it's
with food.
gendered a
It
little
was
bit.
so gendered.
Yeah.
I always worked with men in the pastry department, and there were always women in the kitchen, but by and large, it was 75-25 or 80-20 rather than
Yes.
50-50.
Women bake and men
Yes,
cook.
absolutely.
As it should be.
And that's what I've been saying.
Never
and that's my new
between-
book is about. No.
Never the tween shall meet.
Yeah. And so it did feel like I was constantly trying to prove myself. I was
Yes.
constantly trying to be like, I'm as tough as you and I'm as talented as you and I work as hard as you and I will fucking show up earlier than you and I will still learn what your job is and do my job. The chips on my shoulders just kept piling up.
Yeah.
And I think that anyone that works in a restaurant feels that way, whether you're a pastry or savory or you're young or old or new or have been there 5 years. The element of you always have something to prove and everyone is a threat and everyone's trying to fuck you and you have to be the best. It breeds this cesspool of sort of insecurity and frankly passive-aggressive communication style. And not every kitchen is like this. And I think they've gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
There's some industries, so film's one of them as well, which is it's a dictatorship. There's not a lot of them left. The director is the fucking boss of
Yeah.
everybody. Every mini department within that, it's like the DP is the boss of all the camera people. There's been this accepted way that DPs talk to people, which is crazy. It has changed in my time in the business, but originally it was like, you shout at motherfuckers. And so it makes me think of our Sarah Lawrence doc because
Did you
Did you
watch
see
I
it?
did. Of course I did. Oh, holy shit.
The one element that
It is
fascinated me
so
the most
upsetting.
is how parallel that little experience in the apartment was to communist China, communist Russia, communist anywhere, where you have a cadre and then you have everyone underneath who's all ratting each other out. It becomes this like really predictable human pattern. So I would imagine that in a kitchen where it is a dictatorship, that same force ends up being applied.
Well, everyone's just jockeying for power. Everyone's
Exactly.
jockeying for respect, for authority. And at the end of the day, it's kind of meaningless. Like no one who's eating the food knows who the fuck is in charge. And
Exactly.
it doesn't matter.
It becomes so insular, though, you can't see outside of it.
Yeah.
No, just
I
for-
was just like, I hate this environment. And I left.
Yeah.
It might be fun though just to imagine that there's a conservative listening and they go,
Let's imagine.
yeah.
just-
Well, there are.
We have a few,
Oh, I'm sure.
which is great. We welcome you.
I could say,
Please stay.
I might be inclined to go like, yeah, it sucks. That's life.
Totally.
A, the movies are great. The food's fucking great.
Yeah.
The thing works. If you're not up for that, then go fucking get a different job.
Yeah.
So I think that's relevant to say as well.
I agree. And I do not think that that's how people should be treating each other. I do not think it's good for anybody's mental health. I think that the structure needs to be completely demolished and rebuilt from scratch in order to be a sustainable business model for people who want to open restaurants and run them and sustain employees. And people were like, oh, was it horrible? Was it horrible? And I was like, I don't know because it was all I knew.
Yeah.
Like it was hard. Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. I made $7.25 an hour. That was the only money I had. I worked 12 hours a day. People were not that nice to me, but I also sucked at my fucking job. I was ruining things daily. I was burning, I was spilling, I was dropping, I was getting in people's way. And I was still able to show up every day and just be like, okay, well, now I'm going to do better. I'm going to learn. I'm going to do better. I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
Had I not experienced some trauma as a kid or had the complicated relationships with my parents, I would have been like, this is unacceptable. But I think there was an element of me being like, oh, this is life. It's hard and people are not that nice to you. This is water. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It was
Wasn't
same.
jarring.
No.
But then there's the whole yes chef element.
Yeah, well, that's silly.
Which
it's like,
is-
grow up.
I just watched Burnt,
Oh, yeah.
and I was having this sort of crazy feeling. Have you seen it?
Yes. Years ago, though.
He's such an asshole, you know. And
Yeah, they
he-
really play it up. They can be that way. I have seen it. And now those people will never admit to it. Those people that were like that in the past would never today really reveal the extent of how bad it was. I've seen some crazy shit. And I never experienced it. Like, I never experienced sexual harassment so intensely to the point that it was traumatizing for me. It was like generic bullshit that you get on the street as a woman. It wasn't anything that intense, which isn't to say that it's
I was
acceptable.
going to say often too, because I've been in those work situations where everyone's harassing each other. It's like what you're doing to cope with
Yeah.
the whatever of the job. Like there's some sexual thing happening that's kind of giving everyone a little dopamine hit enough to get them through what is like a military slog otherwise.
But when
Like Bree and her coworkers, they're all grabbing each other's asses. They're
Yeah.
all like, it's a pervy fucking environment.
Totally. But I never wanted to fuck anybody that I worked with until my very last restaurant job in San Francisco. And I slept with somebody that was new and then I left and that was it. It wasn't
Nice,
messy.
great way to
You
go.
got
Yeah,
out
I
of
was
there.
like, you know what? I know how this ends and it's not good.
But when it comes from the top, it's tricky because you're literally saying, yes, chef. They are
Fully a
above you.
sexual
Yes.
domination.
Yes.
I'm more talking about server to
situation.
server. I'm,
Right.
I'm pro server to server, flirting and fucking
Oh,
with each
yeah.
other.
Creates a magical dining room.
Yeah. Okay. But now you did witness the rabid abuses of power.
Well, it's just like people throwing shit. But again, when you have that experience as a kid or growing up, you're like, oh yeah, people suck.
is
Or like,
what they
this is what they
do.
do.
Yes.
And it was never that jarring. And that's probably why I was there for 7 years. And why, when everybody started speaking out against it, I was like, yeah, I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. I'm not horrified. Nothing about it was shocking. And people don't know the half of it.
Yeah.
But it was also behind closed doors, like everything else before social media. I put that in quotes. I don't know why I'm 1,000 years old. But in the movie industry, every executive that ever threw anything at any assistant or whatever continued to happen until people were like, oh, we have an outlet to show you
Yes.
this is happening.
Yeah.
And people are listening. Because before that, what were you going to do?
Yeah.
How
Oh,
are
yeah,
you
yeah.
going to get this information out? Someone from the local news was going to interview a local line cook
and then
about
you get fired.
Yeah,
and like,
it's
is it
who
worth
cares?
it? Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't matter. And the more power people amass, the less people are interested in hearing your sob story because they're like, that's the way the cookie crumbles. You want to work in Hollywood? That's what happens. You want to work in a restaurant? That's what happens. And now people, I think, across all industries are like, that's not how it happens.
Well, you almost have to demystify the conceit of it all. I know a couple directors in particular that they're as bad as they get. One calling the entire crew together on the side of this riverbank and going department to department saying their names. You're trying to fuck my movie. Just dressing down and this is on a
Jesus
movie
Christ.
that was nominated that year. He's a brilliant director.
This is like in the last 5 years?
And yeah. There was this belief, there's a paradigm that you can't make friends and make a great movie. You've got to fucking drive.
Yeah.
And it takes people doing it the other way and having success before it breaks the paradigm. I'm hoping and I'm guessing that like David Chang, who I know and love, is one of these people. There's different people now that are having success and also being lovely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
David Chang's not one of them.
He told us he was
Oh,
tough.
he did?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I don't
mean, he
remember that.
was clear about that. My hope is people evolve and change. I think people can. So,
I think that we have to assume that people do. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a part of any person who's been in the public eye for any length of time, that we're going to cover a large swath of their personality, their career, their personal life, everything. And if you're comparing somebody to who they were 10 years ago, we have to give the grace to be like, I'm going to assume that they have grown and changed as I have grown and changed.
Yes.
If you believe in that as a concept, you can't pick and choose who you give that benefit to.
agreed.
I think
yes.
even as important as that is being honest about the context in which the behavior happened. I say this all the time. It's like you have people getting canceled over being in blackface in 1985. Yet in 1986, Paramount puts out Soul Man. In 3,000 theaters, Thomas E. Howell painting his face black. So take it with some context that it was a popular movie and everyone signed on. So if someone did it at a party, it is a much different thing than if they did it today. There's
And
no
it's-
no one's in blackface in fucking movies anymore.
Right. Just culturally, the way things shift. Gay marriage was legalized like 2 days ago.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and we're acting like we are this society that has existed today the way we've always existed.
So
it's like
evolved.
So critical of every other
exactly.
country.
And
that-
it's like things change on a dime here. And the sort of moral uprising of what becomes acceptable versus not is rapidly changing. And I think the restaurant industry, the movie industry is actually a great example of that, where you're like, well, that's just like not how we do things anymore. It feels like we're trying to immediately erase and change and pivot and be like, this is who we are now and this is what we believe in as a people.
It takes
Yeah.
a sec.
Yeah.
I think of this in defense of a lot of comedians. It's like, yeah, if you take anyone's shit from 15 years ago, it's a bummer. It's not
Yeah.
great. If I were those people that was getting blasted for that, I would go, just so you know, my job was to go up to the line and stand on it. And I was standing on the line in 1993. I'll give
Yeah,
you that.
the
I
line
was
was
right
different.
on the fucking line of what you could do. And now the line moved. And guess what? Now I'm standing on the line again right here. But I'm going to be wherever the fucking line is.
Yeah.
And yeah, guess what? If you rewind, the line was in a different place and I was standing on it.
Yeah. People in the public eye are going to ebb and flow. And if they're good at their job, they're going to push the limit. They're going to be like, this is who I am. This is what I say. And then sometimes things push back.
Yeah.
I can't believe you just brought up Soul Man. I'm like, now I can't. Now I'm like, who was in Soul Man?
Thomas C. Howell. He
Who
was
is that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Thomas C. Howell was the number one babe in the world. He was the lead of Outsiders, Stay Golden Pony Boy. Thomas C. Howell was Zac Efron. He was Zach. Would you guys know Zac Efron? Fucking little
Okay,
baby.
I think that's a little after our time, but yeah. Was he the Zac
You know-
Efron of your
you know,
time?
JT Thomas.
JTT.
He was better than JTT. He had
went
a
to my
like
high school.
huge.
No.
Yeah.
You said
For like
you had
a brief,
no brushes.
Well,
Look
that
at this.
was my one brush.
That's a good
I think he
brush.
was older than me.
Even better.
Speaking of that, I was thinking of you, obviously, before this interview, and I was like, this is so tricky because you're so smart, as I said, and thoughtful and interesting. And I wonder if you feel cut off at the knees because of your experiences.
Yeah, I do.
Do you feel like I can't say anything?
I don't really subscribe to that, like, woe is me, I can't say anything. But I do sort of feel like no one can say anything in a way that you can accept that and just say whatever you want, right? As long as you
Yeah.
accept that, like, anything can be taken any which way. You know what I think about often is the woman who tweeted that thing that was like, I'm enjoying coffee with my husband in the garden before work every morning. We love each other so much. And that was the tweet. I'm paraphrasing. And everyone was like, how dare you? What a privileged position to take that you can just enjoy your life in the morning. Like, you don't have to be anywhere. Like, I wake up at 6 o'clock to take my kids to school.
my
Like,
God.
and it was taken to, I mean, it was like a 36-hour Twitter cycle, but it was so funny to me. I was like, this lady was literally just like, I love to have coffee with
having
my
a moment of
husband.
gratitude.
We love each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, you dumb bitch.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, you know what? No one can say anything.
My position on that was like, this would happen during quarantine. I was enjoying much of quarantine. I was with my kids nonstop, which I don't get
Don't
to be.
say that out loud.
Right. Even like we'd be on the podcast and Monica, in hopes of protecting me, be like, just be careful how much you're saying you're enjoying it because so many people aren't. And I'm like, yes, a lot of people aren't in my position and that sucks. but I'm not willing to lie about my life experience to
Right.
appease someone else. I can't account for triggering someone that I'm having a good day. If we're evaluating principles, I'm going to have to put being honest above all those other ones.
Yeah, I think for me, it becomes a value check and thoughtfulness check where you're like, what I'm about to say, could this be interpreted in a way? Sometimes you're like, yes, but I can't control that. Or I can't apologize for that because, as everyone knows, like intentions sort of mean nothing, especially when something's taken out of context or a pull quote or whatever, a headline. But moving forward in my life, is there a potential for this to be damaging, hurtful? And I don't do that every time I have a thought that pops into my head. But I think when you're like, oh, I had a great time during quarantine, everyone's like, that's insensitive. And you're like, well, I did.
Yeah.
Or any number of things that people can sort of say. Look at the flip side. Look at the people who don't have what you, and you're like, okay, that could be for any person for anything. Like, I'm enjoying this really delicious, beautiful, bougie coffee that you got me.
Oh, we
and I
get
appreciate
it.
that.
We get a lot of shit because McDonald's is one of our sponsors,
Yeah.
and I'll sometimes write back to
I'm
these
loving
people
it.
like, I can't believe
Right?
you are endorsing, and I'll write, would you prefer I lie and act like I don't eat Big Macs 6-7 times a year? I fucking do, and I
Yeah,
love them.
you are loving it. Authentically.
Exactly.
So okay, so you don't want me to lie. Then you want me to tell other people to live in a way that I'm not even living. Like, what do you want?
There's
Like,
too many people that get a say in our lives as individuals who choose this life. And by choose this life, I mean who have the option for people to email, write in, contact, comment their thoughts about us. In my circle of people that I know and love, none of those people are commenters. They're not reply guys. They're not.
Yeah.
Someone last night at dinner called them a respond lady, and I was like, I don't think that's the name. Respond lady is not what we call them, but she's very offline. I don't know anyone who's writing in to like express their vitriol.
Grievances.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, who are we living for? And we cannot live for every person with a fucking opinion because that's the entire human race.
Exactly.
I think it's twofold. So I think there's something on our side too, which is most of us don't like the idea of being disliked. We're a social
Oh,
primate.
God.
It's very off-putting to us. I think what people really have to do is be true to themselves and also accept that some percentage of the world will hate you for that. And you need to get over that. On one hand, I'll say, I think culture is asymmetrically driven by very few people. That's what scares me,
Yes.
right? Is I don't think it's
Be
consensus.
extremely online.
It looks bad on us when we're really defensive about it. Like what I just said about the McDonald's thing, that's a failing of mine. I should not even give a fuck that someone cares I have McDonald's commercial.
I love and support your McDonald's habit and sponsorship for the record.
Thank you.
Now, here's what I'll acknowledge my great privilege, which is, so I don't write for a magazine. I don't have an employer. So I have enormous freedom that I don't feel very scared to live out loud how I actually am. But in your situation, you were working at Bon Appetit for a while, and then you were working for the New York Times.
Yeah.
And so when you got criticism, that was potentially threatening for your
Yeah, I lost my job.
livelihood. You lost your job
Yeah,
over it.
fully
right?
lost my job. And
Yes.
so that's when I started home movies.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have an employer. I didn't have any financial fallback plan. I
Yes.
wasn't saving money.
Yeah.
And you'll hate this, but I do need to tell people what it was. I just learned of this today. You were in an interview.
Well, that makes me happy. What a
That's also
I
the
had
thing.
no idea. She kept telling me something vaguely and I didn't know. And then I read. So you were in an interview and you were launching some partnership, some capsule product with Material. Is that the name of the
Oh, I
company?
love material.
They're great. It's a great
Yeah.
company.
And in that you made, so here's where I'll be critical of you.
Yeah.
You just shouldn't talk shit about anyone.
Ever. That is the biggest
Like this is where I'll, like
takeaway.
this is my moral judgment of you.
Are
is
you
like,
kidding me?
Don't talk shit about people. Do your thing.
That was like far and away the biggest takeaway. And obviously came from such like a place of insecurity and like
Sure.
me being
Maybe some
protective of my
jealousy.
oh my God, so much jealousy. You're kidding
Yeah.
me? I had this like little parcel of I'm the cook lady and I do the cooking. And then there's like other people doing it that are like beautiful and famous.
Big,
and I'm
glamorous.
like, how dare they? Who gives a shit? And why did I have to make a comment on that to increase my own value?
Right. So that's the only thing
course,
to me.
God.
And I read that, I'm like, that's a bummer. I think we'd all aspire to be bigger than that.
Totally.
Okay. Now, because the two people you criticized, because they were both Asian, that was painted as a racist
Yes.
point of view. Now, an allegation of racism, it kind of requires the New York Times or whoever to act. But again, what percentage of the world thought you were racist when they saw that? I have a hard time believing it
I
was
don't know, 'cause
above
my-
0.4%.
I mean, my perception was it was 100%.
Sure, of
Right.
course.
And
And,
it was-
that the whole world knew probably, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an example of being like, oh, you said something super fucking stupid, really born from a place of jealousy, childishness, insecurity, all this other stuff that's obviously not coming from a well person. And you're like, oh, that was dumb. But now you're saying it's also this other thing.
Right. Yeah,
So it's
capital
not
offense,
as easy
a
as being
capital.
like, oh, God, that was such a gaffe. It then becomes like a scarlet letter on your personhood for the rest of your life. I can see why that was interpreted that way. And I would never discount somebody saying that that's how they felt for that instance, because it was like, well, you only named 2 people. And they
Right.
happen to both be
But if I
Asian.
were-
And you're like, okay, yes, I see that looks really fucking bad.
Yeah.
And
You
then,
should've
and I'm like,
thrown
I
all-
promise you, I'm just jealous, petty, and stupid. I'm not racist or whatever, you know? And like,
You should have thrown a Caucasian in there.
I know, but
Yeah.
you know what it
You're
When
was?
his
just
Paltrow was
talking.
right there on a
I know.
platter. Yeah.
Well, because Marie Kondo was on the cover of Forbes magazine that was on my kitchen table. And I had just read this article about her literally like the night before. And I literally was cleaning out my pantry when I was giving this interview. Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
And just like looked over and I was like this person and like this person. I was naming like the 2 most famous people I can imagine in that space. I didn't give it a fucking second thought, which was such like a frankly ignorant
And
move on
rookie-
my part.
rookie mistake.
Such a rookie mistake. What I interpreted in the moment as, oh, that was shitty, then almost ruined my life. You know,
Right.
because
Yeah.
of the rapid fire sort of spreading of social media. And this was also at a time where pandemic had just happened. I was very popular at the time because people were cooking a lot.
Yeah.
And so it was like a perfect storm of I was top of mind. I was not really a celebrity. And so I was this regular person that this thing was happening to that I think encouraged more people to talk about it. It's kind of like when Julia Fox became famous. So like I know her, I see her at Lucian. Now she's dating Kanye. Like people want to talk about it. I was like in this quote unquote feud.
Did you have defenders at that period?
I'm sure, but it was too dark for me to
Yeah.
even look to see.
Yeah.
Anyone I had worked with, any one of my friends,
Yeah.
like no one publicly wanted to stick their neck out because it was such an intense climate for anyone at that
Yes.
time. I don't begrudge anybody for it.
It's like McCarthyism. It's like, oh, I don't know if he was at that meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
I do want to say 2 things though. One is some of the cancelings I love. I get nervous that this very, very small percentage of people that are very loud and mobilized can end the lives of people. So that I hate. I also think there's a little bit of moral panic about canceling. Because the truth is, you and I are sitting here talking. Like, you weren't canceled. You had a redirection and it's fucking sucked.
Yeah.
But you kept working.
Yeah.
That's the key. I think some people just get defeated by this. I think it's another one of these things that you can play a part in your canceling to some degree. I think some
Well, you
people
have to
can
be
surrender.
resilient enough. I think that's hard.
Yeah, and I think that when people say like, oh, you weren't canceled, I sort of am like, well, I was. Unless you literally die, how else do we define cancellation?
Right.
Because I was canceled insofar as much as that nobody would hire me for anything. I made my own work. Phone did not ring. The email box was at 0. It was dark. It was bleak. And I was like, oh, nobody's going to ever want to work with me. No one's going to hire me. So I have to then create my own ecosystem.
Okay, so that's kind of what I want to add is
Yeah.
like for creators who are supposedly canceled, I think some percentage of them are. If you're a film actor, you need them to make a movie and put you in
Totally.
it. But the upside of all this craziness in the internet, that's what's fueling the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
The upside is YouTube doesn't block anybody.
No.
You want to make your shit and do your thing. You can tell yourself you're canceled, or you can make your shit, do your thing, put it up. And a lot of people aren't going to agree that you're canceled. And that may also be the truth.
But what's also tricky is you're a cook. You were cooking. And so now you have to pivot into something kind of completely different, which is now you're a personality who cooks and does their own production. And that wasn't what you
That wasn't the
signed up
plan.
for.
Yeah.
That
But-
wasn't the plan. I mean, you do a great job.
Thank you.
We add a huge weight to it because it's you remember the name of the principal, because there was a nefarious act behind the canceling.
Betrayal bias?
Betrayal bias. So if you actually are an alien and you're looking at you and I, so I spent 2.5 years making a movie. It comes out, it doesn't make any money. My ride as a director writer in Hollywood has ended, at least in my mind. So I then go start this podcast. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. You stopped doing the thing you were going to do, the trajectory you were on, the identity you had, being a writer in that capacity. That ended for different reasons, but it ended. And then you deviated. And now you have another thing that's fantastic, and you're here and we're talking about it. So it's like, The cause of it, we could end up putting so much weight in. But the practical thing is 2 people lost their identity. They lost the opportunity they thought they were pursuing, and then they pivoted and they did something else.
Everything happens for a reason, but also like a tale of resilience, a tale of making the most out of the situation, but also just like not having a choice. You're a creative person. You have something to say. You have something to contribute. And you thought that that avenue was going to be filmmaking, and perhaps now it's this. And the way that you do it is on such a deeper level and is probably a better and more perhaps fulfilling way to express that. And I feel similarly that I wouldn't have been able to do beforehand. But also with everything that didn't happen for me or every job that I left on purpose, I accepted the fact that I would probably have fewer eyeballs, fewer financial resources, less popularity, but I was going to be able to do it more on my own terms. I was going to be able to do it in a way that was, for better or for worse, this is my work. Whereas like a movie you make, you're like, well, they didn't market it. I didn't have the budget. It was like out of your control. And this podcast, you are the most direct pipeline to the people now. So if they don't like it, you're like, you don't like the thing that I'm making, and I accept that.
Yes. My global thought is there's some percentage of people that were canceled. And what they really haven't been able to do is accept that the previous avenue they were on is roadblocked. But I think some people can get defeatist in that. And then that's the end of the story. It's like, until that road is cleared, I'm dead. And I just will say, a lot of people deviate from that, and then they also find their way out of it. And as this is a weird new phenomena of the last 15 years, I think there needs to be examples of what is the post-cancel landscape. And there's going to be advisable paths and ones that like, if you're just sitting around going, when's the such and such paper going to hire me again? It's like, you're then you are canceled.
For me, I was like, well, I have to continue to do the work, make this about the work, because I really believe in that. But also, I hope to have a very long and storied career. And that's going to be a shitty part of it. That's going to be like a divot. I can't just have a meteoric rise and ascend forever and ever, because I'm a human person. And I'm going to learn stuff along the way. There was no team. It was me in a kitchen. And when you are thrust into a new sort of level of public eye or whatever you want to call that, there is such a steep learning curve. And that was a crash and a fucking burn. But I was like, okay, well, I still do this thing. But I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I had no idea.
Yes, people need to remember no one stole your ability to make food. And be creative. That can't be taken from you.
But I also was like, I know who I am, and I can't let this define me. There was no secret found out. I was just being myself, and that fucked me. No one found out that I was like secretly doing something.
Uncovered
exactly.
tapes.
And that would have been embarrassing and harder to recover from. But the fact that I was just doing the thing that I thought was fine and being anti-capitalist in my own fucked up weird way. And that was so bad and so embarrassing, but I'm going to dust it off because it doesn't define me.
There's also some weird, I'd love your opinion on this, and I'll anger Monica a little bit. I'm always critical of my own side of the aisle the most, because I'm not speaking to the right, they're not listening to me. This is my job to clean up the place I live. There's a unique appetite on our side to devour one another. And I think there's a very interesting chain of events where anyone who was feeding on it then got devoured by it. I think that's really mind-blowing. As far as like Bon Appetit gets taken out by Reply All, and then Reply All gets taken out for the same thing they were taking out Bon Appetit for. And then who knows who takes out the people who took out Reply All. All these things vanish. And it's like, I don't know who's on top of the mountain now, like victorious. We have some weird proclivity.
It's like when you said, oh, did anybody stick up for you? Well, no, because everyone realized how vulnerable they were. And the way people acted and stood up straight all of a sudden, it was like, couldn't be me. I've never done anything bad in my whole, I've never said anything bad in my, it's like, okay. And everyone was just super pious and earnest and quiet. It was happening all around us. And if it didn't happen to me first, I would have been terrified. I wouldn't probably have given any interviews because you're like, it could happen to me. And it did happen to me.
Then it happened to all of them. Looking on the outside of all these stories, you almost have to laugh at it.
It's like, just this big shame machine devouring itself.
Totally.
I like to hope we're a little inoculated by it because I'm not in the shame game. I'm never calling anyone out for anything. So minimally when I fuck up, I won't be a hypocrite. But it's like, that fucking guy, what was his name? Roy, whatever. He rode up on a horse in the election down in Louisiana or something. And it came out he had fucking married a 14-year-old. I mean, there's just no denying that this guy was like a pedophile. And the whole right stood by his side. You get people like in power going, I'm still for Roy. It's like, wow, man.
Oh, because Republicans are just like, oh, I'm with them. And I don't care what
run
they
in
do.
to help.
Yeah.
They run in to stick up for the person.
Well,
And the person could be on fire raping a baby, and they're like, he's a good man.
I know. Well, that was the worst part for me personally because I consider myself a pretty liberal person.
Most people getting canceled are liberals.
Yeah, and you're like, I do the right thing. I'm on the right side of history. I believe in X, Y, and Z. These are my morals, right?
Yeah.
And so then people on the other side being like, she didn't do anything. And I'm like, no, don't claim me. Like, I don't want to be on that side. And it became like this whole thing of the people that would stand up for me were not on my side. And I was like,
Oh,
fuck.
that's so strange.
It was so awful.
Like, I don't want to be associated with this.
What if Roy ever rode up on his horse?
Roy, you and your horse.
She's not racist.
I know.
I had sex with her when she was 12, and she's a good person.
Exactly.
God, do you guys remember what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea who.
Sorry.
Who is it? Roy
Roy
Moore.
Moore. Who could forget?
At the height of this, like the whole country
There were
knew
so
he was
many of
sleeping
them at
with
that
teenagers.
time that it was like,
Yeah.
pick your favorite. I don't know.
But like this motherfucker rode into town on a horse at the height of everyone knowing he had
and you
been
know
with
what? It
teenage
worked.
girls.
People drank that shit up.
I know.
They're like, he's a real American. He rides a horse.
But even the reply all stuff, I just found out about this, which I don't even know if we're allowed to talk about it. I'm sure we are, but technically, I think Spotify owns reply all.
Right.
And
yeah,
I was talking to someone at Spotify about this, a fan of yours, and I was like, we're gonna have Alison on. And he was like, oh my God, how exciting. And then he was like, man, she really got dragged into multiple things. And he was talking about the reply all thing, which if you don't know, Reply All did a 4-part story on Bon Appetit, which you were at for like not that long.
I was
Right?
there for 4
years.
years, but it was so far before.
Okay.
I hadn't been there for 5 years
when all that
When it
all-
happened.
yeah.
Yes. So
You left in 15.
in 16.
Okay.
Wikipedia says 15. But
Really?
continue.
We're gonna have to trust Wikipedia
Get on
over
that
your
Google.
own.
Sorry,
real
you don't know.
But yeah, so they did a story and it was about diversity and it was sort of an expose on Bon Appetit. And in the first episode, they asked these women, who I assume were your friends also.
Yes, correct.
Friends of yours who worked with you at the time who were minorities. And Adam Rappaport had these darlings and gave them opportunity. And who? Allison. And I was like, oh no.
I know.
Now she's been dragged into this story somehow. And literally just because you're there working hard and getting opportunities.
Yeah. Which, by the
And-
way, Adam didn't speak to me for like the first 2.5 years I worked there.
But no one wants to hear, that's not part of
It
that
doesn't matter.
narrative.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So that's
Yes.
cut out. And then they don't end up airing all the episodes of this show because the Reply All people get canceled themselves. So you hear
You're only one bad episode and it's about me.
yes.
When that happened, I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Basically, I was aware of that podcast. I had participated in it, and then they decided to cut everything that I interviewed with.
Didn't help the overarching
Yes, they didn't want to
narrative.
include any
Yeah.
person that wasn't sort of speaking on behalf
You
of
would
the
have
mission.
accidentally been likable and
Perhaps.
people would have questioned
No,
that
it's like
assessment.
that's against the narrative they're telling.
Yes, it was against the narrative.
Yeah.
Which is that I also didn't get any opportunities. And they also had it not great. But I can't speak to it because I didn't work there when they worked there. What that podcast was exposing.
Right.
It was a team of people that I'd worked with some of them in the past, but it wasn't my experience because I hadn't been there for 5 years. That said, I was like, well, as the podcast goes on, they're going to bring all these other characters into the fold that's going to exonerate me because it's going to show the power structure, the top down. I actually had no power. I was making as much money as you.
Yes.
I had the same job as you. It was these people. And then they cut it off.
We never got there.
We never got there. And I was like, but this was the time where people were gonna see. And I was like, you know what? It fucking doesn't matter. Because also at this point, that podcast I think aired in January or February of 2021. And everybody had already kind of made up their mind about me.
Yeah.
All this shit had happened. I had picked up the pieces, tried to get on with my life, do the work, my own like physical, literal work. People are going to like it or they're not. They won't stick around or they will. And it was so delusional of me to think that people were going to listen to a podcast and be like, oh, wow, she's not so bad. Or like, she really earned this. Or she works really hard. Like, no one gives a shit. When structural racism is at play in a workplace, no one cares who works hard or not because that's not the point. You're identifying the fact that people of color, women of color specifically, have to work harder to prove themselves in any environment, especially when it's a top-down, white male-led environment.
Yeah.
And that was the story. And that's still the story. In a lot of places, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
Me and my little fucking ego. It doesn't matter.
Well, the bigger, broader thing again is like 90% of the time I hear someone's canceled, I'm like, what? I don't know.
Same.
And
I don't
that's
know.
beautiful. I love to hear that. But I definitely assume that everybody did know. But also I lived in Brooklyn and everyone I felt like did know in that microcosm because it was extremely online people.
I think
Yeah.
LA and Brooklyn, New York are unique.
And it was a blessing and a curse that we were in the middle of a pandemic. The curse being that I was
Exactly.
deeply alone in my walk-up tiny ass 1-bedroom apartment.
Were you thinking like, I'm too famous and popular to be living like this?
No.
That's what I would have thought. I'm like, if this many people are writing about me, I should have a much nicer
I was like,
apartment.
guys, I'm a regular ass person. How am I in this
I know, but that would have felt
conversation?
unjust. When I was on Punk'd, I was making $2,000 an episode, and it took 4 weeks to film an episode. In the whole first season, I made $16,000 over the course of a year and a half.
And they're like, you're rich and famous. And
I
you're
got
like,
really-
I don't have any money.
But I got really famous, maybe the most I've ever been. It was
Yeah.
on fucking MTV 4 times a week, 9 million viewers. I'm going to bars and people are losing their mind. I can't buy a drink.
Yeah.
I'd take a girl to my 1-bedroom apartment and they'd be like, what the
They're like, oh my God, he's so humble. He's living this humble life.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's confused. Like, wait, you're famous. Shouldn't you have money? I'm like, no, I am flat broke.
Oh yeah, I mean that was literally my thing. I was like, how is this happening to me? That's the weird microcosm of celebrity that we build is it can happen to anyone and it doesn't necessarily correlate to being actually rich or famous or having the support system of an actually rich and famous person.
A good percentage of people probably learned your name the first time when hearing you were ensnared in some kind of
Yes.
debacle. Yeah. I think what would be really helpful to people, because people experience much smaller versions of this, but very
all the
relatable,
time.
where it's like, oh my God, my life's over. My
Yeah.
friendship circle hates me. Whatever that core community they have, they lose. People do that. Can you think of some turning points where there was breakthroughs? You must have just wallowed in it for a while.
It was so dark. I lost a few friends in the process that the friendships were probably a little precarious to begin with. They were mostly white women, you know? So you're like, okay. But one really important person to me was like in her wedding. I made her wedding dessert. Like I was like, we were very close and that was really painful. But everybody else in my life was like, I know you, I love you, I stick by you, you'll get through this. Had I not had that, I would have been a nightmare. I mean, it still was a nightmare, but it took a really, really long time to be able to leave the house with confidence. And I was really fortunate that we were wearing masks at the time because I felt like it was the only thing that protected me from this deep pit of shame every time I left the house. Because I would make eye contact with someone on the street and I'd be like, they know who I am and they fucking hate me and they think I'm a racist.
Well, I was just going to say, it's not just that you were called a racist on its own. You're called a racist at the beginning of the BLM movement.
I mean, the time.
Like, there's literally going to be marches down the street where it's like
I
high
know.
alert for racists.
I know.
Really bad timing
Yeah.
across the board.
I know. I wasn't like, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
My attitude was like, I'm bad. Like, I'm sad and bad. Like, I went really inward. I made myself very small. I had zero confidence. I was so shrouded in shame. I feel like I'm going to burst into tears right now, but
Please do.
actually,
It's really good for the show. Let it rip.
Monica, honestly, when people first started telling me that you were into my recipes, I was like, does she know what I did?
Oh.
Because like, you're not a white lady. You know, I'm like, oh, she's a smart, informed person. She must not know.
Oh my
Because if she did,
Of course I knew.
you're like, I am very online. Anytime I received any sort of praise or like feedback from somebody that wasn't a white person, I was like, oh my God, I'm not the fucking worst. Oh my God, I knew I was gonna cry.
Monica, I'm so proud of you, and
but
I'm so
seriously.
happy for you. And now I'm
Yeah,
welled
I
up.
know, we're all crying. No,
Should we take our clothes off?
Let's touch.
Everyone's vulnerable.
Where's Ben
This will
Affleck?
be really connective.
Oh, that makes me.
Yeah, but that's so true. And I assumed that anybody who wasn't white that was like, I love your work or I'm such a fan. I'm like, you don't know.
Wait till you find out.
Yeah, and then if it'll all fall apart and you're going to be horrified or hate me or burn my books. But like,
What if Monica didn't know until this interview?
I was like, oh my,
God, LOL.
fuck you. I gotta go.
I know. Can you imagine?
Get out of this attic. No, because people are people. I made a gajillion mistakes
know.
and continue to do so and will continue to do so. And if you judge everyone on like,
that's the
you
thing.
just
I'm like,
can't.
that's the thing is like you were saying, everybody has gone through this on some level where you're like, everyone's mad at me, or I did something stupid at work, or I sent an email.
You
that I
get
shouldn't have
hammered
sent.
and you act like a fucking
Yeah.
idiot, and you've got a lot of apologies to make.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, how do I do that? But on the most epic scale of my fucking life.
Yeah.
I was single at the time, and I remember being on dating apps and people wanting to go out with me because they were curious about it.
Oh.
And that felt really shitty too. It felt like I was like an animal at the zoo because I wasn't really famous. I wasn't so untouchable that this thing happened to this person that you're never going to meet or talk to. You could see me at the coffee shop. You could see me at a dinner party. Your friend knows who I am. I was so close to the people that gave a shit about this thing that it was like, I was like an alien creature that people were like, oh, did you hear? Did you hear? It was like so fascinating for people. When I decided to do the newsletter, I was like, I have to keep writing.
Was that the first thing you decided to put back out there?
Yeah. I was like, I have to do it. And if I don't do it now, I can't ever do it.
Yeah. And so you put out the first one, and do you have any sense of how many people read it? Is that trackable?
Oh, yeah.
Did you know immediately, like, oh, wow, a lot of people are reading?
People are following you.
Yeah.
This goes to the thing I was saying earlier, is like, you can really give a very small percentage of people, you can fill it the rest of the world in based on this thing. And then if you push forward, you might find out, well, God, I don't know what the number was before this thing, but I can't imagine it was much less.
Totally. You'd lose metrics and followers and this, that, and the other. But for me, it was I lost all my external work.
Yeah.
Before everybody wanted to work with me, and now nobody wanted to work with me. Some people were like, I think you're wonderful, but they give me the look of like, but we can't.
Bro, reading between the lines, it even appeared from what I read about the New York Times thing was like they were gonna try to wait it out. Their statement wasn't like, we're firing her. It was like, we're putting something on pause.
The company
or something.
line was that we parted ways.
Oh, I thought there was some
Because
duration between.
There was. They were going to bring me back.
All right. And then ultimately
they decided that they were not going to, but because I was a freelancer, they couldn't technically fire me. So I sort of had to recuse myself from the column, which in retrospect, I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I just never left? If I was like, I'm still a columnist. They haven't published me in 3 years, but I'm still a columnist.
What was the first thing you put out?
I think like a tuna salad recipe.
And was it just short and sweet?
Yeah, and I don't want to ignore what happened. I don't ever want to be one of those people that's like, this didn't happen. I don't talk about it. I also can't have it define me or be the most interesting thing about me. And I realized that the only way that will ever happen is if I keep working and if I keep making things, if I keep writing books, if I keep putting out content, evolving what it is that I do in my work, then that becomes the thing people talk about, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think that in 3 years, that won't be the topic. But I was really nervous to come back out and start doing press and interviews and things like that because I haven't done it in so long. Since that, I really went dark, and I was just, because that's all people wanted to talk about, even when they said that they didn't. And it wasn't done in like an honest, vulnerable, compassionate, interesting, curious way. It was done in like a needly way.
Yeah. What's your rebuttal?
Or like wanted to somehow see me dig myself deeper into this hole. But I'm just like, there's nothing there. I'm not going to give you a thing that's going to paint me to be this person you insist that I am.
Yeah.
I can't give you a second gear to this story. One doesn't really exist. Well, my favorite part is that you just are owning, I was jealous and I was rude and stupid.
It was so obvious to me as soon as it happened. I was like, oh, you jealous bitch.
Yeah.
Like,
it's also interesting when you just said about everyone else you were in meetings with or whatever, and they're like, well, we want to, but we can't.
Yeah.
Is literally the exact phrasing of my Dairy Queen.
Which is what?
Okay, so I had this really pivotal moment in 6th grade where I was at a
She
pool.
got canceled.
Oh, by
I got
Dairy Queen?
canceled. Well, sort of.
Okay.
My best friend had a boyfriend, and his best friend was supposed to be my boyfriend, obviously. And he was so cute, and I liked him. We were at the pool. My best friend went up to him and said, hey, why don't you ask Monica to be your girlfriend? And he said this exact thing. I want to, but I can't because her parents work at Dairy Queen. They don't.
It's an Indian stereotype.
But it was a stereotype in
Wow.
Georgia because Indians like worked at the Dairy Queen.
Owned the Dairy Queen.
Franchise.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And there was something so paralyzing about, they actually can't like me.
Yeah.
Not they don't, or they're not interested,
The
or they
next
don't
one,
want
maybe
to.
the next one.
Maybe the next one. It's like, oh no, this is a can't.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
Forever. It fucked me.
her up.
You then internalizing what racism means.
Yes.
Your identity wrapped up into how people perceive you.
What they
without,
see,
Yes,
and I have no
that's like a
control
completely
over.
different experience.
She wouldn't even eat at
different
Dairy
in
Queen
that-
until I started bringing her back. I reintroduced her to Dairy Queen and the joys of
I
the
love
blizzard.
it.
Yeah,
I
so
do love
I
it.
got them back.
Wow.
Dairy Queen was just another victim in the whole.
I'm glad I didn't bring up Dairy Queen earlier.
No, but I know you're not going to make the connection there.
Right.
But there is something deeply painful about someone saying they can't love you, take you on, whatever, because you paint that with a very wide brush. You're like, oh, I'm actually
You're reduced to one
unlovable.
thing.
Persona
I
non grata.
can't.
You're reduced to this one fact, whether it's true or not,
Yes.
whether it's relevant or not. You can't change
You have
people's
no
minds.
control.
No, zero control.
Yes.
But I think that that's the other thing I've acquired some sort of peace with is that I can't control what other people think of me, and I can only live as myself and live my life and be myself and be authentic and be consistent.
Yeah.
And people are going to sort of decide one way or the other. But most people that don't like me, A, have never met me, or B, have like made up their mind a long time ago because of what I represent or how I appear or what it means for them based on that incident or something that happened before or whatever. It's not about me.
Yeah.
And I think that I have a tendency to make everything about me.
We all do.
Right. And
Yeah.
that isn't about me.
So you start with a newsletter, and then that goes well. Are you shocked?
Yeah. I was crying daily. Everything was a fucking slog. Writing was honestly the only thing that I had by
Well,
my
by the
own
way,
volition.
it's the greatest expression of control
Yeah.
ever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Writing's the ultimate.
And I felt no one's going to read this if they don't want to. No one's being force-fed me. And I think that that was a lot of my trauma around what happened is that people were like, ugh, enough with this lady. She's everywhere. Oh, she gets a column. She gets a this. She's in the this. She's in the that. Because people were putting me
Yeah,
places.
you had a TV show that was in pre-production or
Yeah.
something?
I felt like people were being force-fed me and they were like, we don't like her. And now I'm sort of like, well, you can drink from the trough or not.
Yeah, it's just
It's here if you want it, but I don't feel guilty for producing this because I know if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be.
Yeah, it's not that you subscribed to the New York Times and then you were forced to leaf past my column.
Exactly, which you're
in
like,
your
oh, this
broader
lady
prescription,
again.
right?
Right.
You're there specifically
Which
to
a lot of people
consume
love
you.
the column, but I'm saying if
Yeah.
you didn't like me, that was going to be
Right.
irritating for you. So I was like, okay, this feels like low stakes. It was tough. It kind of was like a diary. And I was like working through a lot of stuff in real time and kind of experimenting with more personal writing that was related to food, which I'm more interested in now than ever. And I wasn't able to do for these bigger publications. And really exploring how vulnerable I could be. And again, while acknowledging things, but not dwelling on them and being self-deprecating in the way that I've always been and just showing myself to be a human person. And I think that before that, I wasn't a human person. I was, I don't know, like the cookie lady?
Celebrity
Like, Yeah,
chef.
exactly. I was not a regular human person.
Yeah.
Well, my guess is that you were looking at the marketplace and the things that had come before you that had worked, and you're on some level emulating what you believe works.
Well, I think that I had always prized authenticity.
Yeah.
And I pushed that as far as I could within the confines of working for other people.
Right.
But I sort of always looked at what other people were doing and was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But that's also how I had
Yeah,
that
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That got me in trouble where I was like, oh, here are all the things that exist and here's what I don't want to do. Why would I have to say any of that? Why don't I
Yeah.
just do the thing that I want and let it speak for itself?
Yeah.
So I'm imagining the newsletter grows and you continue to kind of write yourself out of all
Yeah.
of this. And then is there something before your current cookbook that
3.
comes out?
This is our 3rd cookbook.
But not
Yeah, no, I
post-
deferred a year. So I had a cookbook that came out in 2019. And so this is the first book post that experience that was supposed to come out last year, but because of a multitude of reasons, 1, depression, 2, production, 3, pandemic, it came out a year after. So it's coming out now. But it feels like a different style of writing. But I don't know. I was like, is anyone going to read this? Is anyone going to want it? Is anyone, there's still
Monica's
going
going to read it
I already read
a
it.
couple hundred times.
Yeah, I'm going to read it more and more, but I got it. I was so excited when it came in the mail.
Great. So instead of me explaining it,
Sweet
Having-
enough.
yeah, Sweet Enough, a baking book. Such tantalizing recipes. Salted lemon pie, raspberry and sour
There's
cream.
so many things I wanna
Toasted
make.
rice pudding, caramelized maple tart.
That sounds good.
I know.
Monica,
There's
tell,
also
walk
some
me through the
savory-
book. How does it work?
Savory tarts.
On the cover, what's a picture of?
Is it a sour cream and raspberry?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like
you
the
passed.
most basic thing. It's like barely a recipe.
It's
but
not sour cream and rutabaga, but
No,
it is
it's
sour
no one's
cream
doing
and-
that. No, as we've established.
And the
Yeah.
premise is this is for people who do not have the time or the skill to pull off dessert.
It's kind of like if you don't have it in you, either emotionally or literally, if you're like, you know what, I'm more of a jazz musician rather than a classical musician. I'm gesticulating towards Dax and Monica when I say that respectively. But I feel like people who are more of the carrot meatball pasta sauce spirit
Yeah.
are going to be like, oh, I don't bake because it requires too much
It's so
focus, measuring
specific.
specific.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Things
And
got to rise. You got
Right.
the right amount of baking
Nothing's
soda.
rising in that book, I'll tell you that. But I sort of made a book for people like you because
Okay.
I am you.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.
I am more you than I am Monica
Okay.
in that space. In
Right.
that, like, I hate instructions. I hate measuring. I hate precision. I hate being told what to do in that way.
There we go. There it
and
is.
so I feel like I wanted to see a dessert focused book in the world that represented those people because I don't think that means that you shouldn't have access to it if you want it. And if somebody one day is going to ask you to make a cake for something or some occasion, you're going to be so fucked without this book.
Yes.
Because you yourself will look at these other books that are like, you're like, this isn't for me. And I feel like this book could be for you.
Yes.
But it runs the gamut. There's the sour cream and raspberry thing, which is simple. And then there's ones that feel harder.
The caramelized
fancier,
maple
and
tart.
That is
exciting.
harder. Yeah, you got to caramelize maple syrup, which is annoying. But
that's exciting.
you just boil it down, basically,
You boil down the maple syrup.
until it's darker.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Like-
it's not so crazy.
There's a
but-
pound cake I'm really excited to
The chocolate
make.
one?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say it tastes like a Costco muffin.
Oh,
I stand by that.
so excited. I made the pancakes.
Oh, how were they?
So good. I was just
She
telling.
was raving about them on the
They're
last
very good.
fact check.
They are
She said crispy on the edges and fluffy on the inside.
inside.
Does that mean a lot of
It's a
oil? Is that the
miracle.
trick?
The ratio of egg and buttermilk in the batter, it's like a looser batter than usual. It's how hot your pan is. It's the amount of oil you use. You know how sometimes pancakes are like smooth and flat and one texture? That's not for me.
No thanks.
No.
This is like a ring of poofed edge that's like
Yeah.
crispy and crunchy.
Almost
like,
caramelized edge.
Almost.
Yeah.
I love that word.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's
Tantalizing.
really
And they're easy. They're pretty foolproof. That recipe has been around a minute. And some recipes I have published before in my career, but for the most part, they're new. But the pancakes is one that I was just like, well, it's not quite a dessert, but it's dessert adjacent. And it's never going to appear in another book. Like, it's never going to appear in like a dinner book.
Yeah.
My favorite dessert
So good.
I've ever had is the Hunk Honk Burn in Love over at Fred 62. They don't even serve it anymore. But
What
it was
is it?
it
What,
was
pray tell?
It's a pancake I'm holding up like the size of a medium pizza. Pancake, it's big globs of peanut butter, banana, chocolate chips, this vanilla sauce, and a caramel sauce in a fucking
Wow.
yummy pancake. And Kristen
it's
and I
incredible.
used to, 3 nights a week, we've been in bed like, we shouldn't go get a Hunk Burn in Love. No, we can't do it. And then once a week, we would buckle and go down there and just devour
That's like a
one.
good limit to set for yourself.
Yeah.
Now I can't eat anything. It's got everything I can't eat.
I know. He doesn't eat gluten anymore.
How many
really?
recipes would you say? Yeah, I have psoriatic arthritis, so I'm really
Okay.
had to take out everything.
The
great.
inflammatory
I
sort of
only eat
things.
protein currently.
You are looking swole.
Do you see this? Good culture.
I ate that before I came over. I
Isn't
ate
it-
the small one.
It's
Yeah,
magic.
that was what I had right before I came over.
This motherfucker's got 56 grams of protein in it.
I love that cottage cheese.
Oh.
There is a really wonderful cottage cheesecake in the book.
Ooh.
And if you make it with Good Culture, not sponsored, but Good Culture is a perfect cottage cheese, it will be very good.
Oh.
Say
can
that
make it
again.
with gluten-free
It's
flour.
a cottage cheesecake.
Yeah, so it's not a cheesecake. It's like
my
a cake made with cottage cheese.
Oh.
So it has like a custardy interior, but it's stable. And the lumps kind of get caramelized at the bottom of the pan. It's pretty good. And you can make it with like any fruit.
I'll make that for you.
You make it with gluten-free flour.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Will you make that for me?
Yeah.
Okay, now you espouse the virtues of the frozen fruit. Please tell us the virtues of the frozen fruit.
I approach dessert making with idealistically the same sort of accessibility as I do my savory food. I believe in canned ingredients. I believe in basic pantry staples. Same thing with baking. Use the shitty butter, use the frozen raspberries. If the recipe is good, it will turn out well.
Yeah.
And I think that people in this culture of being, quote, into food
Yeah.
as a
Or-
personality type, they're like, well, I only shop here and I only get these ingredients. And I only, it's like very exclusive.
Yeah, frozen is like
And-
almost like GMO.
Yeah, and I don't believe that fruit should be in season and ripe and fresh 365. So if you're going to have raspberries, I think it's perfectly acceptable to have the ones that are picked when they're ripe, when they're in season, and then frozen.
Boom.
That's great. I feel that way about peas. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the frozen fruit market because the idea is that you're taking something in its season and you're basically preserving it through the method of freezing to extend its life. And if we don't accept that into our hearts, then we're going to be farming these shitty raspberries in the middle of February.
Yeah, we're paying up-teen amount of dollars
I
to
also
ship
made the
them.
matzo ball soup this weekend.
Oh, you did? I made it last week.
It was so good.
Oh, it's so good.
I know, but you know the problem? I couldn't find chicken fat.
I told her to order.
So I
I told her
used
to
butter.
order a 20-piece McNuggets from McDonald's.
Yeah,
That was
he
my
wants me to
suggestion.
try the stock with McNuggets.
I said, do you think you could make chicken stock
that
with
might
McNuggets?
be an issue for several reasons,
Yeah.
but we can workshop it.
Yeah, so I have to get my hands on chicken fat for the night. But it was still great with butter.
I've made them with butter repeatedly, and
It was really
Very
good.
good.
Yeah,
they're rich. It's like a dumpling at that point.
it was nice.
Yeah, I grew up going to this place called Solly's. They closed, but it was on, I want to say like Van Nuys Boulevard and
But
Ventura.
no cantors for you.
I love Cantors.
Okay.
I was just at the Kibitz room.
You mentioned Langer's.
Yeah.
Beautiful corned beef.
Flawless
beautiful
pastrami.
pastrami.
It's the gold standard across the country. I'm sure there's some young gun doing pastrami in a way that is fucking sick.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, the Langer's pastrami, granted, I was a Langer's baby. I was raised on Langer's. My father would disown me if he heard me talking about any other pastrami, but it just is.
You've
And
not
the
been to Langer's,
environment?
have you?
No, I
Oh.
gotta go.
Yeah.
It's tremendous. Directly across the street from MacArthur Park. So you get filled up on pastrami, go grab a bag of tar, and that's your weekend.
Go get some fresh fruit, sit in the grass.
You know, MacArthur Park is famous for its heroin sales.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, tar, totally. I was like, I don't know what he's saying. I'm going with it. I'm going to say fresh fruit. We're going to keep going.
It's
Alison
almost
Roman,
always a
pro
drug
heroin.
reference.
Full of sound bites. I'm loving it.
No, Langer's so fucking good. Do you like the other fun one downtown, which is for French dips?
Oh, Philippe's. I'm not a French dip person. Again, my father would disown me if you heard me say that, but I am pro iconic old school establishment in any city. It will be my favorite restaurant. I was at Dantana's last night. I judge a place not necessarily based on the food, although the food should be good if it's going to stand the test of time, but the soul of it and the environment of
The
it.
overall.
Like, yeah, the overall. It's so hard to duplicate. It's like when you're in a relationship and you're like, is love enough? And guess what? It's not. And like, is good
Yeah.
food enough? It's not. You need to have the soul, the energy, the
Yes.
vibe. It's got to have a feeling.
Yes, you feel like you've teleported when you go to somewhere like Dantana's or Musso and Frank's or Philippe's. I just want to make one argument for Philippe's, and it's a reframing. Don't think of it as a French dip restaurant. Think of it as a vehicle for the hot mustard that's on the table.
Wow. Say no more.
Because their hot
Boy,
mustard.
do I love
in
mustard.
And it's in a squirty.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're
It's gotta be.
encouraging you to go wild. That hot mustard is so hot.
That's enough
and
to sell me, honestly. I'm such a mustard fan.
Oh, God.
You
hot
also like
mustard.
Houston's, right?
I love Houston.
Oh, it's so-
The spinach artichoke dip, unparalleled. The artichokes, forget it. That's like an example of going to a restaurant where like, I'm never going to make that. I cook at home and I love cooking at home and I love cooking for people. It's not a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's never going to compete with the vibe, the energy, everything.
The bustle.
Yeah, so if you can't go to a restaurant
Wait
for
staff
that, like
fucking
I'm
each
like, what
other.
am I here for?
Yeah, true.
No wait staff fucking each other in the parking lot.
Yeah.
No
the
meth-
sexual tension and filling
Yeah.
the air. Oh,
The casual meth use, that's
yeah.
it's in the air. Well, Alison, this has been a party.
Thanks for coming.
Great analogy. It was very Lane Norton for me.
Good.
Yeah.
I had a feeling.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, we're even. I'll try to find another weird muscle-bound
Oh boy.
guy. Who can,
All right.
all right.
It's
We'll see.
tough.
Let's
There
just
can
keep-
only be one. you know?
Exactly.
Let's keep trying, though, to like,
Okay.
shock each other and surprise each other.
Yeah.
The cookbook is called Sweet Enough, a Baking Book, and it is out March 28th.
I was reading it on the toilet.
Oh, great. You couldn't pull it away. You're like, I
really
have to take
couldn't.
it with me.
There's a lot of your writing in it too.
Yeah, more writing than usual.
I love it.
So what kind of writing is it, Monica?
Like in between recipes, there'll be stories and also just a lot of Alison embedded in it.
I tried to take some recipes and storyify them,
Yeah.
and that this is more of an idea about something you're making rather than the droll of a recipe, which can be tough to read. But it's always my hope, and I feel like I've gotten closer with this book because I realize there's limitations, people that don't like dessert. I really want it to be for everyone, and even if you don't bake, the photos are gorgeous, and like
Yes.
hopefully you can read it like a book. I have a friend who's never cooked a thing of mine ever in his whole life. He's read every book. You know?
I believe that because a Samin show I watch, Fat Sass, Acid,
Salt, fat, acid,
Salt, fat, acid, heat.
Say it one more time.
Salt, fat, acid, heat.
Salt, fat, acid, heat. What I need to do is SFAH. I can remember that acronym.
As long as you get all 4 words in there,
Yeah.
we'll get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what's important. But anyways, or I watched Jose Andres' show the other day because we interviewed him. And so, yeah, I'm not a cook. I'm not going to start being a cook anytime soon. And there's something bizarrely aspirational about it. What it represents is more than what it is on the surface, I think. There is someone actively choosing to put way more time and energy and resources and money towards something that you don't need to. So it's almost like an artistic expression, even if you're just consuming it. There's something about it that I go, oh, this is one of the cool things about the monkeys. They just need calories. That's all they need.
Yeah.
It could be so easy and done in 2 seconds. But no, these people are going to dedicate 5 hours to this experience. And then I think it was him who explained as well, the amount of resources and time put into pleasing your ears is almost infinite. We buy music, we listen to music hours a day. We are committed to enjoying that sense. And we are committed to enjoying all kinds of our senses with our eyes. We watch everything, the art we consume visually. And when I see people putting that same effort into their fifth sense, their taste, their gustatory,
Ooh, gustatory. Never
I'm
heard
like,
that one.
oh, this is cool. I'm not doing that. And this seems wonderful and artistic in what you should be doing while you're on planet Earth. So there's something I find to be inspirational about that.
I think that's cool. I appreciate that. I think it's like why we watch sports. I'm never going to do that, but I love watching you do it.
Yeah.
When I was making the matzo ball soup, I realized, I was like, oh my God, hours have gone by and I have not been thinking about what I'm normally thinking about, which is probably myself or what's going wrong or what, you know, I'm not ruminating. It
You're not
really
scrolling
makes you,
endlessly into the abyss.
yes, you can focus. It's a really nice relief.
Yeah, it's a really good way to sort of leave your body for a second.
Yeah, we just interviewed these two wonderful ladies, Ivy and Susan, who have a book called Your Brain on Art, Your Aesthetic. So anything of your five senses that comes into your body. And the kind of cathartic process of creating art, which food is that. Like it's everything they were describing in your brain that happens when you're making pottery.
Full sensory.
You got to use both
I think
hands,
so,
which is
yeah.
weird because you have to use both sides of your brain. In very few activities that are artistic,
I didn't
you
know that.
use both sides of your brain because you're using both hands. So yeah, that's one of those things where the whole body's doing it.
It's like proven to be good for your mental health. And I was putting those pieces together. I was like, oh yeah, this really was a nice respite.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why when you were asking earlier about the sort of stereotype of a person who works in a kitchen to be this type of personality, I think a lot of people find it to be a really great coping mechanism. And I think especially if you lack the tools to say like, here are my mental health issues or here's where I struggle, it's like a very direct yet indirect way of coping with anxiety or stress or control or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like a place to put your energy.
Definitely.
So
Yeah. What fun.
thank you so much. This is like honestly the only interview I ever cared about.
Oh,
Truly. I really feel that
was
way.
very touched by that moment you guys had.
I was like, don't cry, don't
you
cry.
Cracked,
No.
You cracked me.
I know.
Alison Roman, Everyone Gets Sweet Enough, a baking book, both for the activity of making the stuff and then the splendor of tasting it.
And if you don't have nothing fancy or dining in, pick those up too.
Yeah, make it a set.
Yeah.
Collect
Yeah.
all three.
I have all three.
What else you got for sale? You got anything on Craigslist?
Home
Because-
movies.
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
Subscribe.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. It was such a blast. I'm
Thank
glad
you
I got
for
to meet
having
you.
me.
All right. Good
Same.
luck with everything. And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Are you getting nervous about getting to your premiere on time? No.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
It's Lincoln's birthday.
It is.
10 years
Yeah,
old.
10 years old.
Crazy.
Yeah, my little Subway sandwich
Yeah.
was delivered 10 years ago.
How do you feel?
Oh, I was thinking this morning as I journaled, the neat thing about your kids' birthdays, it's their birthday, but it's also your birthday.
Yeah. Big day for both of you.
Maybe even more for me because I'm going back to that first her being put in my hands
Yeah.
when she was 1 second old
Yeah.
and she was scared.
Oh,
And
she
I
was?
looked at her in the eyes and I said, "Oh, it's okay. Welcome to planet Earth, Lincoln.
Oh.
We've been waiting for you."
Yeah.
It's so fun to say that to your little sandwich.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
And then I just did everything with her for 2 years straight.
Yeah.
I see these videos of myself and I think, oh, I was such a better dad back then. I was constantly tossing her around, dancing with her, teaching her to throw a rock on a river, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I was playing with her. My
Yeah.
new toy.
Yeah.
My
New
new-
toy.
My new baby doll.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like on kids' birthdays, mom should get gifts because they really did a lot of work.
Yeah, they did.
That's a lot.
They baked that loaf of bread.
They did.
You see the little loaves of bread come out of that Subway sandwich oven. You know, when you go to
Yeah,
Subway,
artisanal, yeah.
the artisanal oven. They're making
Yeah.
100 of them in there, but it's artisanal.
Yeah.
But yeah, they come out of that oven piping hot. And they've been cooked. That's what the mom did.
Yeah, it's really nice. Push that sandwich out.
Are you in your premiere outfit?
No,
Oh.
I'm not. I have a jumpsuit I'm going to wear. And a jacket. Coat.
Oh, wow.
Jacket coat.
Ever worn it before or first time out?
First time.
Oh, wow.
First time out.
But you've already tried it on and you feel great in it.
I've tried it on, yeah.
Yeah. And you feel great in it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I always, in situations like these, I always repeat. like a high stakes situation like premiere where Ben and Matt are at. I want to be in something I know I've felt confident in the past.
Interesting.
And for you, it's time to explore.
Yes.
Wow.
It's an opportunity for a new outfit. I'm excited. I was going to wear this outfit to the premiere I went to on Friday, Anthony's premiere and Rachel's. But when this premiere came in to the picture, I had to pivot.
It threw everything upside down.
It did. But I really liked my outfit I wore on Friday as well.
Wonderful.
So it all worked out.
How does this outfit play into anything?
Nothing. That's just my outfit for
It's
today.
outstanding, though.
Thanks.
Yeah. You should take a business meeting in that. Next time you have some business.
Very coordinated.
Yeah, the shoes
Put together.
The shoes kind of tie it all together. They hurt my feet.
Oh,
They look good though.
Thank you.
I'm wearing these shoes too.
I wondered if they were new. I hadn't seen those before. Very cool.
I love them.
How was your weekend? Anything? Well, we watched Cocaine Bear.
Okay, so everyone already heard my review of it.
Yes.
Hit us with your review. You know, anytime you and I watch movies in the same room, I'm always delighted that we have virtually the exact same sense of humor.
We laugh at the same jokes.
Yes, and hardest at the same stuff. You seem to be letting it rip every time I was letting it rip.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You guys hosted a screening for our pod, and it was really funny. It was so ridiculous. Like, it was so
ridiculous.
absurd.
Yes.
And hilarious.
But there's a couple set pieces in it that are just for the record books.
out of this world.
Yeah. The whole ambulance scene is just tremendous.
Really, really funny. High recommend, and know what you're getting yourself into. It's absurd.
Preposterous.
Yes.
Yes.
But really funny.
But the kids with the fucking 2 grams of cocaine on the switchblade.
I know.
It makes you laugh so hard because there's these little beautiful children. You're like, no.
Doing this really nefarious thing, but they don't know.
Very innocent and cute the way they're doing it.
It's adorable. Yeah, so high recommend. That was a fun viewing.
Very fun. And I also did Cirque du Soleil.
So sad. I was invited last minute by Lincoln.
Okay.
But I couldn't make it because I had an appointment. I was so sad because I love Cirque du Soleil.
What appointment was better than Cirque du Soleil?
It was
Your witch?
Yes, and I had already pushed that like a month.
Right. And you had a premiere to attend on Monday.
That really wasn't why. It was more
Respect for the witch?
No, like I haven't been in here for a month. I can see it.
Okay.
And I can't handle that.
I wish she would come to my house and do my face.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of equipment though, right?
Yeah, she
steam your face like one of those steamy things?
She doesn't.
She does not. Okay.
No.
That's not for
She
her.
has lots of acids.
Okay.
That's her main
Okay.
tool.
Is
Acids.
acids. I
Yeah.
thought you said she has a lot of assets. Like she's got a lot of equipment.
No, acid.
Okay.
She's
really
just throwing acids at your
willy-nilly
face.
with the
Oh yeah,
acid.
but it works.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Does your skin peel off afterwards?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Depends.
Okay. How deep she
Sometimes
goes.
it melts.
How much acid she's got.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sometimes you look like the characters at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Never seen it.
Oh my God, you haven't? Indiana Jones?
I know. I've only seen one of the Indiana Joneses, and that was in Cannes. It was one of the premieres in Cannes.
But it was like
so it was
one
late.
of the later
It would have
ones.
been in 2008.
No.
Yeah.
You gotta watch the Orig. It's incredible.
It's a ding, ding, ding. Because Matt Damon was there.
At the premiere.
Yes.
Oh
and
my God.
so obviously that's all I could think about the whole time. So I was not watching the movie. I was just
For sure.
kind of looking to see if I could get a glimpse
Did
of
you have eyes
him.
on him? Do you know where he's sitting?
Yeah. So I could see like the back, a little bit of his hair
You were behind him or in front of him?
behind and way up high.
Okay, you could have also been, they also put people like front row. You could have been
No, I
turning around the
wish.
whole time.
I
The
wish.
person directly behind you would be like, you're making me so uncomfortable staring at me. I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at Matt
It's
Damon.
not you. You're not important.
Shut up.
Yeah. So I don't remember.
Any of the
Indiana
movie.
Jones.
I don't think any of the subsequent ones were very good. The first 2 were great.
Yeah.
First one is insanely good.
Spectacular.
Yes.
Old classic.
Very trusted.
Okay, so Cirque du Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil, I wish I could tell you the name of the actual one. They all have different names.
Right.
I guess it was one of the earlier ones, like one of the original ones.
Oh, really?
There's something about a clown. It's another name for a clown.
Corte.
There you go. You got it.
Calvin went yesterday with his grandma.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
What did he think? Was he blown away?
He loved it, yeah.
You can't not love it. It's so good. Cortez?
Corteo.
Corteo.
Yeah.
Ooh.
With the big balloon he was excited about that floated
Which-
over.
The person's in this harness and there's big inflated balloons and she floats throughout the whole auditorium. And people have to put their hands up and she floats down and puts her foot on it and then springs herself forward and goes to different areas
Did
of
she
the
ever
audience.
land on anyone's head?
No, I only saw hands.
Oh.
But it could happen. But my first thought, what do you think my first thought was?
How do I do that?
Yeah, I'm going to get this in my backyard. And when people come over for like barbecues, we'll hook them up. We'll tether them so they can't fly away. But there's no reason I can't have this. It's not like any of the tech is that complicated. Wouldn't you love to come to my house and go flying around the backyard?
I don't know. I think I'd be worried I would suffocate.
What? Of what?
You're dangling.
Oh, your feet are out.
Like the movie Up.
Oh, I thought she was in the balloon.
No, that would think she'd die of.
What? Suffocation.
Mm-hmm.
Flaming Lips do that for their like live show.
And they're not dead?
They have like ventilation things.
Okay.
I mean, there are ways, but that's what I thought. Okay.
She was not. She was outside of the balloons.
Oh.
And clearly we could just add more balloons.
No, but then there's always risk of floating away.
But no, what you do and what they did, because we got to go backstage and check out how all the sausage was made, they weigh her several times throughout the day because they got to get it perfect. Because ideally she's weightless so that she can bounce. Or maybe even probably they have her weighing a half pound. I don't know what it is, so she'll fall back down.
Right.
But they have little bags of sand that they attach to the cords if she's under or overweight, well, only underweight. But so it would be basically set up for my weight or Charlie's or Air, whoever's the heaviest person in the group is. And then sandbags would be added when you got on. That doesn't appeal to you to float around the backyard? It
sounds cool. I just don't know if it sounds cool enough for the risk.
The investment? Oh, the risk.
Just wear a parachute and have like a knife with
Because
you.
that's a lot going on. And that's what I mean. Is it worth am I going to have to cut myself free and then collapse to the ground? I don't know.
No, I'll have a long cable. I got to figure that into the weight. That's going to be complicated because as it goes higher, it'll be more weight. Or maybe it'll just be fishing line or something.
Okay.
200-pound test or something on there.
Okay.
So that no one floats away.
All right. Well, you are good at fast math.
Yeah.
So
Well, you'll have the zip line that you can use.
right.
For rescue
as part of
operations.
it. Yeah.
Or no, but what if you get caught in the zip line?
And it pops and then you drop to the
Yep.
ground.
Something we got to think about.
You can do it only over the pool. That way, if
Oh,
you're that
no.
scared. Why?
That's for me way worse. Drowning.
oh,
I can't. I'd rather
you will not drown.
crash into the ground than water.
You're not going to drown. You're a great swimmer and a great bicyclist.
And that pool's like, what, 7 feet at most?
I'm only
It's
5
not even.
feet.
It's
Rob.
5 feet.
Well, someone will jump in and get you.
I've got a wading pool.
Although the balloons might
Exactly.
then-
It'll be weighted down because all the balloons are on top of
Now
me.
the
and I'm
balloons
like,
are heavy. They're
yeah.
helium.
Whatever. There's a harness attached. Okay. I'm
It's
stuck.
too much.
I'm stuck.
All right, you can watch. You'll just
I
have
think
to
I'll
watch.
watch and I'll be
You
happy.
can take pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when Ryan's up because he'll be in charge of pictures until he's
Until it's his turn.
incapacitated. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, that's fun. Cirque du Soleil always makes me feel like magical.
Well, I was so sick. I've been so sick for a few days, like really sick, where I'm like kind of miserable while I'm awake. And so I did not want to go, but it was for Lincoln's birthday.
Yeah.
So I really had to rally.
Yeah.
And then that's the power of the show. It was within 2 minutes, I was like elated with childlike wonder.
Yes.
The things they do, and what I actually dig about it, it's a pretty lo-fi version of Cirque du Soleil if you've been, because most of the shows, if you go in Vegas, they've built the entire stage around it. So the stage is really complicated. Really cool things happen. Visually very stimulating and wonderful. But in the absence of that, you just have the death-defying stunts.
Yeah.
And what I couldn't get off this point. It was probably annoying everyone around me. There's no job. No one has a job that they do repetitively 10,000 times and don't fuck up. Even if you're putting paper clips on paper or you're stapling things or any job cannot be done over and over and over again without you dropping something.
Yes.
In the margin of error, there is no margin of error. Especially the dudes, the one that's really crazy is they're on a seesaw. Have you seen this? It's a seesaw. It doesn't have handles. And so one guy jumps and it propels the other guy. And he's got to land perfectly on the seesaw. And now the other guy flies up in the air. Now he's 20 feet in the air. He's doing fucking flips.
Oh my God.
And he's got to land perfectly on this little plank and propel the next. He fucks the next guy if he doesn't land perfectly and use his legs correctly immediately upon landing. And I'm just watching this going, and they do, I don't know, in that sequence, they do 40, 50 big
I don't
jumps. Like,
understand.
how do they not
Mess
miss?
up. I know. I agree. Do you think there's some precaution, like there's like magnets or something? Because
no.
has
And
any?
there's not even, there's no safety net. There's no one's wearing wires. There's a couple of the stunts where they wear wires, but in general, there's another thing that this person did. Guy comes out with a ladder. The ladder's probably 8 feet tall. It's just a ladder.
Yeah.
You can't climb a ladder if it's not leaning against something. Well, he can.
No.
He can climb a ladder that's just there, and then he can get on top and do a fucking handstand on top of the yes, on the yes. And you're and he's like walking over, he's walking up one side of the ladder and going down the other side. And then he brings out this 20-foot ladder. And I almost didn't enjoy watching it. I was like, he's so high up, and it's a ladder. It's just standing on stage. It's not leaning against anything. It's just his body weight.
But maybe it's in. See, that's
no,
Oh.
because he's walking. A lot of the times, he's to get his balance. He does have to move.
He does.
He walks with the ladder. Like the ladder walks until he gets that perfect balance going.
My God.
And then gets on the very top.
It's incredible.
It really is.
I think that people should comment if they've ever been to a Cirque du Soleil where something went wrong.
Ooh.
Maybe that'll be a prompt for the next
But I don't think there's enough. I doubt that there's enough because I've never heard of anything going wrong.
You'd get injured is the thing.
I
It's
know,
not like
you'd
someone
die.
dropping a prop in a play.
I know.
Right. I don't think they die, but you'd like there's people would break things.
You might die if you were on a handstand on a ladder.
There's a way you could, yeah.
Someone died
Oh.
last year, 2022.
Ooh.
A 90-foot fall,
Oh, that sounds like a cable
Las
malfunction.
Vegas.
That has to be an equipment error. Because at 90 feet, they would have been wearing a cable or there'd be a net.
Blunt force trauma.
Oh, Jesus, Rob. Okay. I'm trying to keep this positive to Cirque du Soleil.
She was wearing a safety harness attached to a cable.
And the cable broke?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Oh, yoy. All right. Well, I love it. I'm
I
glad you
lo-
went.
It's my favorite thing. You know this about me. I've seen Mystere in Vegas probably 9 times.
Yes.
And I've been to Love a few times. And I just...
The O Show is one of the best things I've ever seen ever.
I know. When I was sitting in the audience. It's by far my favorite live thing you can watch. Yeah.
so
To me, it blows away any play or musical or anything.
But you know what it's not as good as?
What?
Cooking videos.
Well,
'Cause,
okay.
there's some
Oh,
high
this is
risk.
Alison Roman.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some high risk because of
Canceling?
dicing and canceling.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
there's
There's
a lot.
career risk around every
And ovens.
turn.
Yeah.
Gas,
Fire.
I
flammable.
had another knife incident.
Brush with death.
Near-death
Yeah.
experience.
I can't find it anymore.
It must have been pretty bad if you can't find.
Such
Can't
a
remember what finger
sharp
was it.
knife.
It was bad.
Those are the worst cuts, though, and like they don't bleed, and then they
No, it
start
bled
bleeding.
a lot, but I healed fast.
I
'cause
cut one of my
vitamins.
fingernails too short this weekend, and it drove me
Ooh,
nuts for
ouch.
3 days.
Yeah, that's-
because someone stole. This is why I had a fucking safe for my nail clippers.
Right.
I got so made fun of. I no longer had a safe. And then when I went to cut my nails, the right one's not there, and I had to use a toe one that's flat, dead flat. There's no curve to it.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And then I cut my index finger way too short, and then just stung for 3 days. Yeah. Okay.
Ouchie, ouchie.
Alison Roman.
Alison.
Really liked her. I've never seen a single cooking video of hers,
I know.
and yet I liked her a ton.
Yes, she's very likable, very real. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you meet her, to me, I feel like you totally get how that happened because she's just open and honest and talking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And she's not
pretty
thinking.
fearless.
Yeah, she's not thinking like, how will I get in trouble right
She's
now?
unself-conscious, which is what's appealing about her.
Exactly. Oh my God, another ding, ding, ding. Really the only fact.
Oh,
well, there's
okay.
2 facts, but
Okay.
really the only fact was she said her dad sold a car to Ben and Matt.
Oh, correct.
And I asked her to confirm.
Was it a Jeep or a Mustang? It was
She
some-
said like a Jeep or something.
Yeah.
And I asked her to confirm
Okay, great.
with her dad. Okay, she said, okay, it was a lease. It was just Ben.
Okay.
All right, okay, so listen to this exchange. This is a text from her dad. Said, Dad, did you sell Matt Damon and Ben Affleck a Jeep, or am I making this up? And was it both of them or just one of them? And what year was it, if true? He said, yes, it was Ben and his friend with him. So he did bring a friend, but it wasn't Matt. He leased a black Grand Cherokee LTD.
Oh, wow. Limited.
Oh, okay, limited.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't
4-liter V6. Oh, inline 6.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him, but he told me at the time my kids might. And he told me he and his friend were writing a movie, which turned out to be Good Will Hunting. I'm going to say it was perhaps 1995. I had the commission slip with his name on it for a while. Isn't that kind of fun and funny? And
Yes. Your kids
Or maybe-
might.
Voyage of the Mimi.
Voyage of the Mimi. That's probably
What's
why.
that?
It's a show I watched in 5th, 6th grade
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
about whales.
They showed it
Oh.
in like schools
Yeah.
and like it's like kind of PBS.
I know that story
Yeah, it would have been
because
that.
Matt was also in some kind of weird sciencey docu thing. His mom, didn't Damon move to Peru or something? His mom had a crazy childhood where he's out of the country a big chunk of it.
Matt?
Yeah. Aren't I remembering this correctly?
I don't remember that.
Oh, I'll have to look up early life on Wikipedia.
I mean, I'll be so embarrassed not knowing that. But
no,
maybe-
in the interview we talked about it.
What?
Yeah, he spent a lot of time in a different country.
Oh,
Am I totally making this up?
are you thinking that?
Are you on
because-
Wikipedia?
No, I'll go there too.
What do you mean? Where else would you be?
IMDb.
That's not going to say
It's not
that on
gonna say about
IMDb.
his-
God damn
mean,
it.
it
Rob,
could.
You know better than that.
Listen,
Early life.
Not really.
I really think I would
Lonely
know it.
teenager. No.
I'm going to have to re-listen to the interview. Yeah, he definitely went with his mom.
But don't say he definitely. Don't say that.
I'm pretty certain. I wish I had my computer because I could just look at my notes from that interview, but whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Okay.
But Ben, was in the Geely, the Legend of Lily. What was it?
Voyage of the Mimi.
Voyage of Mimi.
Voyage of the
Okay, so
Mimi.
that's why his kids would know.
Yes, it was a
So I was
like.
thinking he had only done Dazed and Confused at that point.
Yeah, they had done very little.
At least Matt had been in School Ties.
They were both in School Ties.
Was Ben?
Yeah.
He was? Matt was one of the leads.
Oh,
almost.
I mean, he wasn't
Ben's
maybe
in
a
it
lead,
too.
but he was
Ben's in it too.
Listed third.
Okay. Oh, Ben is? Above
Well,
Matt?
I mean, it might also be.
Retroactive.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser is listed first.
Well, he was the lead.
Yeah. But I'd say Matt Damon was second.
Yeah, it says listed Brendan, Matt, Ben.
Okay.
Oh,
Great.
Cole Hauser's in it too.
Oh, yeah. That was one of Cole's.
Maybe that's how they met.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a Cherokee Limited.
A black
Jeep Cherokee
Cherokee.
Limited. Uh-oh.
I guess it would have been before. Well, okay, my best friend Gina, who her and I together were obsessed with Good Will Hunting. It was our thing. She drove a white Jeep Cherokee.
Oh, my God. The gold with the gold accents, gold badging and gold rims.
I doubt. No, she,
Yeah, they came with it. They came like
Really?
that, yeah.
no, hers looked not like
Yeah.
that. But that's a ding, ding, ding. Because her and I were obsessed, and he had
Oh
one.
my God, she didn't even know it.
We
They
didn't
drove
even
the
know
same
until
car.
now. Bless you.
I think the limiteds as Ben bought, he swang for the fences.
Yeah. They had gold.
Yeah,
Maybe hers wasn't limited LTD,
that's possible. I guess you could just have a standard white one
but that's a sim
for her.
for me and her and him. Okay, one other fact.
Yeah.
Does YouTube block anyone?
Oh,
Yes, they have and do, but it seems really rare. But they did
hate speech.
Right. They banned this influencer, Andrew Tate. Hate speech, yeah.
Oh, that's what it was, hate speech. For Andrew Tate.
Yeah, he was that guy that I think got caught with like the pizza boxes, right?
Oh, is that the guy?
I think that's Andrew Tate.
In Romania?
Yeah,
He was, like,
yeah.
in Romania or something?
Yeah, for the human trafficking thing, and then got arrested.
Right.
Well, he's described fighting women,
Oh.
saying grip her up by the neck. TikTok banned him also. Interesting. Okay. Okay, I want to clarify something.
Okay.
Or I want to make it public.
Okay.
I'm pregnant. No, I'm not. I'm not.
I'm pregnant.
The moment with Alison, which was so sweet.
Yeah.
You were really proud of me.
Yeah.
You said so,
Yeah.
which was lovely. But I just want to make it clear that the reason that I have a outlook on life that is forgiving is definitely because of you.
I don't know about that.
It is. No, it is.
You're sure about that?
Yes, because before I met you, I had a lot of strong conviction
That's a baddie. That's
about
a goodie.
goodies and baddies and right and wrong and black and white. And you changed my opinion on that.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't
'Cause I
believe
was
in
a
that anymore.
baddie?
No.
Jeez, I'm
No,
teasing.
not at all. Because you see the gray and you make a point to always. And it has really changed the way I
Oh, thank
see the
you.
world. So
Thank
thank you.
But I've said it already, but favorite moment. I like that moment more than you meeting Matt Damon for sure.
That's
for
sweet.
me. To see her just genuinely crying,
Yeah, it was sweet. I felt so
not worthy of that.
kind of, but because like I didn't do it. Like for me, I didn't do anything. All I did was, and I didn't, but all I did was not condemn a person.
Well, and you openly commended her and
Yeah.
acknowledged you love her and make all of her recipes, and you were a supporter of hers.
Yeah,
that
I
was
am.
clear. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I really like that. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
am.
It takes a lot more courage in those situations to stand by people. Infinitely more than just either staying quiet. Like that to me is what I would most expect of you, to just like never say anything perpetuating that canceling, but also just like, why get into it? I don't need to say it.
Right.
But then actively decide, no, I'm going to say it. And you obviously have some fear of then there's blowback against you for it.
Yeah.
And you know what it is? I think we're framing it wrong. We're evaluating like what you did or didn't do.
Yeah.
What is clear and obvious and palpable is for her.
She needed
And
that.
that's all that really
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
That my friend was the lifeline to a stranger at some point and helped her keep trotting forward.
Yeah.
Is an immensely
It's really nice.
prideful thing for me to think of for you.
That's
yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
But I'm just passing that along.
You're sending it.
I am.
Okay. Well,
Really.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I accept.
Good. And that's it.
That was everything.
Yeah.
Any update on your guys' budding friendship?
I was supposed to do a moderate a thing for her about the book, but I won't be back from Hawaii in time. And I looked to change my flight, but they have skyrocketed in price.
Yeah. So some light communication about the potentially hosting the Q&A.
Yeah, and then I asked her about her dad.
Okay, great. Yeah. And then you'll be in New York. Do you know the next time you'll be in New York?
I don't.
Nothing's on the books.
Nothing's on the books.
You'll reach out to her though and say you want to get an Emily burger?
Yeah, and I also think when she's in town, I am going to try to see her for dinner here
Okay, perfect.
at some point.
Oh, this is very exciting.
Yeah, I think it is exciting.
Yeah, a couple spunky broads out on the town. What could go wrong?
What
Maybe you'll both be
could
canceled
go-
after that.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
All right, well, I love you. She was a
love you.
delight.
Yeah.
I really
I'm glad
felt
you
for her.
liked it and it wasn't, just too like cooking-y.
Esoteric.
Yeah.
For my taste.
Yeah.
No, I expected that as well. Like
Yeah.
Lane Norton sitch,
Yeah.
but I was immediately interested in her right when she walked in.
Yeah.
She's got a vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool vibe.
All right.
All right, love you.
Love you.